Each of these past few weeks under President Donald Trump have been a year or more in the political world. It's indescribable. Today I saw that Donald Trump revoked the security clearance of Joe Biden. I mean, this is nuts. This is a former president. He already banned Bolton and I think Brennan too from federal buildings and revoked their clearance, revoking also the total 51 former spies who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop. The big news, however, and this one's tough for us, because we could go with there's a judge trying to block the firing of USAID employees. USAID just had its name stripped from the building. Crazy stuff is going on. But Donald Trump issued an executive order on South Africa, sanctions and calling for refugee resettlement of quote unquote ethnic minorities. And we all know what ethnic minority that is. It is the white South Africans who are being targeted, or these farmers who are being tortured or killed. Now, for the longest time, the media claimed it's not happening. It's not true. White people aren't being targeted in this country. And now Donald Trump has come out outright as the president and said it's happening and something's got to be done about it. This is a massive, massive story that's been bubbling up for decades. Lauren Southern had a documentary, Farmlands, almost, what is this, 7 years ago. And this conversation's been happening for some time. And now movement is happening. This is getting big. So, we talked about, like, what's the big story? I know for most Americans, it's probably going to be USAID, foreign spending. Big Balls is back. Elon Musk has rehired, quote unquote, Big Balls. That's his name. I'm sorry. That's what he goes by.
Beast.
Yeah, at Doge. But we got to talk about South Africa. For the longest time, there have been white people as ethnic minorities being targeted, their land being threatened or taken. And they recently passed a law in the country that says the government can just take your land without compensation. And when international rights groups said, hey, this seems wrong, the response from the government was, it's all according to our laws. But just because it's illegal doesn't make it right. So we'll talk about all that. Before we get started, my friends, of course, head over to castbrew.com and buy coffee. Because how can you listen to the news without a delicious cup of coffee? And it looks like Ian's graphene dream is back. We are working around the clock to restock Ian's graphene dream. This is crazy. The more people buy Ian's Graphene Dream, the more they demand bigger stock and more shares. We're getting emails from people being like, this is the best coffee I've ever. I am surprised.
It's legit great. I had it this morning. My girlfriand ordered it, and I had it yesterday. It's like legit. The whole low acid thing does make sense. It's
Ian, he's usurping my throne here at Casper. We launched, so Appalachian Nights was the blend I made. And I didn't call it like Tim's blend. I was like, Appalachian Nights. It's cool. It's dark. It's fun. And we didn't intend on that one being the top seller. We thought Rise with Roberto Jr. That's why I put the rooster on it. But then once people started buying Appalachian Nights, it shifted rapidly and became our best seller. Ian said he's like, coffee's too acidic. I want a low acidity coffee. So we researched some of the lower acidity roasts and made a blend. And then this is what we sold. Ian sold a year's worth in 1 month, and then we restocked as fast as we could. It took like 6 weeks to get 6 months, and he sold it in a month. And we are working. So go to castbrew.com, find out exactly what everyone's raving about with Ian's Graphene Dream. I think this next batch is going to sell even faster. Really excited. Y'all are putting Ian through college, and he needs it. Also, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to watch the Green Room Uncensored show. You know what we want to do? We wanted to make something better than just the uncensored call-in show, because that's just like an add-on to IRL. We want more content. So we're working on documentaries. The Green Room is back. Sam Tripoli. You want to watch Sam Tripoli have a discussion behind the scenes, the theory of science and space. It's good fun. And the Terry Schilling episode with Mary Morgan got rave reviews. Obviously, the Nuance Bro hangout where he made inappropriate jokes, and it was really funny. It's all a lot of fun. Support our work at timcast.com. I'm going to tell you guys now, you want it. If you haven't signed up and you're planning on it, you want to do it now. I'm just letting you know. All right. If you haven't, don't wait. You'll thank me later. But also smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Tony Ortiz.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Who are you? What do you do?
I run Current Revolt. We're a kind of like a National Enquirer / TMZ of Texas politics. So cover a lot of stories, break a lot of news, a lot of stuff we've reported on as cause legislation. So we do good work.
Right on. So obviously you've been dealing a lot with the border crisis stuff and immigration.
Yeah, it's like an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing for us with the border crossings. Been down there. I think most people have been down there at this point. It's just such a mess. And you kind of don't realize until you go and see how like absolutely awful it is.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. Brett is here again.
Well, yes, back again 2 nights in a row. That's not even a downside. Like saying TMZ, actually one of the underrated sites that seems to not editorialize as much as other sites. So that's actually a compliment in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Somebody tried insulting me once, I think years ago, saying you're like an TMZ, and I was like, you know what, you're right. So
Not
just
an
leaned into
insult.
it.
But guys, yes, Brett here, 2 nights in a row. Let's go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
Here's the big story from the Associated Press. Trump orders freeze of aid to South Africa, citing country's land expropriation law. But let's jump into the actual language of the man. We have this executive order that was issued today, and it says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. In shocking disregard of its citizens' rights, the Republic of South Africa recently enacted Expropriation Act 13 of 2024 to enable the government of South Africa to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners' agricultural property without compensation. This act follows countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, and hateful rhetoric and government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. In addition, South Africa has taken aggressive positions towards the United States and its allies, including accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the International Court of Justice and reinvigorating its relations with Iran to develop commercial, military, and nuclear arrangements. The U.S. cannot support the government of South Africa's commission of rights violations in its country, or its undermining U.S. foreign policy, which poses national security threats to our nation, our allies, our African partners, and our interests. It is the policy of the United States that as long as South Africa continues these unjust and immoral practices that harm our nation, the U.S. shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa, and the United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. This is a statement from the president, the highest position in this country, that, let's just be real, he is saying white people in South Africa are being targeted by racist policies to have their land stolen. Now, I got to be honest. Shouldn't all of the woke people defend these poor, oppressed minorities? I mean, they're what, 8%? Serge, you're going to have to help us out here. Is the white population about 8% of South Africa?
I think it's like 8 or 13%. It's something like that. It's not
13.
It's not. I think maybe 8%. I don't remember. Yeah, it is. It's kind of mimicking the United States, huh?
Americans would say that is the population of African Americans here in the United States.
Right.
So it's a minority.
So shouldn't all the woke people defend the underprivileged minorities who are having their land taken from them in South Africa?
Not enough melanin. Not enough melanin. Yeah. I mean, I think in Texas now, white people are becoming a minority, and so it's Hispanics that are becoming the majority in Texas. And, you won't see it. Like it is the minorities is now just anybody that's like brown or something else, right? Or black. It's not. When whites do become a minority, it's not. They're going to change something. The wording will change or something.
Oh, those are different
wording. Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, in South Africa, because the whites were the colonizers, you don't actually ascribe to just the race-based dynamic, right? The power dynamic that they ascribe to is decolonization. So because they're colonizers, it's okay to attack them. It's okay to subjugate them. It's okay to cast them out. Because Frantz Fanon wrote a book called The Wretched of the Earth, and he describes the decolonization process is always violent. It's always about getting the colonizer out. So the power dynamic, it doesn't matter that they're white in this context, because it's just about having the power dynamic shift.
But the interesting thing is that the history of colonization in South Africa does not mimic the colonization from other colonies.
True.
Like in the I'm not a historian of South Africa. Maybe Serge, you know a lot better. But I've actually read a little bit. I should say a little bit. I met a few people 20 years ago from I met a woman from South Africa. And it got me interested because she had fled. She was a young white woman and she had fled the country. And I was like, really? Like, what's that about? And she explained that her parents didn't want her to get raped. They were scared that she would be raped, and so they found a au pair programs so that she could go overseas, and this was the easiest way to get a visa and get her out of the country. And so then I started just reading about what was going on, and I was shocked to find that after the end of apartheid, it rapidly became the rape capital, the baby rape capital of the world. Homicides like jumped tenfold, all these crazy things. I then ended up watching a movie called Stander. And Serge knows all about this guy, Andre Stander. I guess he was like Dillinger of South Africa or something.
Something akin to that.
Like bank robber, dude.
Bad guy that was kind of like an anti-hero.
Yeah, kind of like Dillinger, you know what I mean? Like
Dillinger, John
he would
Dillinger,
burn mortgage papers and everyone would cheer for him. But the Stander stories are crazy. He robbed a bank and then they, as they were fleeing, they heard on the radio. Fortunately, the Stander gang did not find the safe hidden behind one of the paintings, so they slammed the brakes on, turned around, went back to the bank, knocked on the door, and when the manager said, "Sorry, we're closed, we were robbed," they pointed a gun at him and said, "Remember us?" and went back in and went to the safe.
I feel like I heard that story just recently. Maybe you said that off air or
It's
something?
a Tom Jane movie.
Okay. Oh, a Thomas Jane movie.
Yeah. You should see it. It's a good movie.
Say, because I did rewatch Public Enemies recently, which is
So I was reading about it, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm not a historian. I don't know. Serge, you have to correct me on this one. But my understanding was that it was not a densely populated area when Cape Town was established, and the East India Trading Company was coming down. They needed to stop for supplies, and there were not very many people there. But I don't know, Serge. You tell me.
Well, it's a lot like the United States and a lot different than the United States. 1652, the dromedaris landed in the Cape, and then after that, they established a trading colony, like you said earlier before the show. Established a trading colony. People liked the trading colony. Then eventually, the Bantu migration occurred, which was after we had made land in South Africa. People that are like what you consider Africans came down from the north of Africa out of the jungles because remember it's in the southern hemisphere, so the jungle and the equator is north from you, so everything gets hotter as you go north as opposed to hotter as you go south in the United States. And they all came down and then essentially made their own nations in South Africa because they said, hey, there's open land, we can survive here, we can make our place here amongst the Khoisan, who are the original true inhabitants of South Africa. So like the idea, yeah, like you said, it's totally opposite of what people think. If they think, oh, well, white people showed up and subjugated the black people. That's completely opposite to what happened.
Yeah, what I've read, and is probably largely incorrect, it's very surface level, is that it was sparsely populated.
Yeah.
Trade colonies were set up, which brought food, resources, technology, and then the natives that had been there started settling in and around these colonies because the excess of resource benefited them, which over 100, 200 years or 150 years results in these massive populations surrounding the major cities, which of course they set rules being like, you guys can't come in here. And then ultimately you get apartheid, segregation, and then you get the whole world being like, it's racist that 90% of the population can't access your cities. Ended it. I think the big problem that South Africa had is I know there's a lot of one of the big reasons why the media lied about what was going on was because they were like, but people will be racist if they hear that this is happening. And I'm like, I don't think race is the principal component. I think it's societies that were not culturally reformed being dropped on top of developed nations.
Right.
And then so you have people who don't have the same culture, the same education level. If you take the left at their word and they say poverty causes crime, it's like, what do you think is going to happen when you open the door to an entire 90% of an impoverished population and put them into a developed nation? This is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Also remember, like you pointed out, why people on the left wouldn't be shouting to the high heavens about something like this. There's a strong influence of cultural relativism, which is the reason why the feminists here will not complain about conditions going on in the Middle East. They will only complain about it here, despite the fact that there's no intellectual consistency there. So they wouldn't actually see the problem there because they're not thinking about it that deeply.
Something that's also to note as well is this happened, it just speaks to what Tim is saying. It happened in Durban as well on the eastern side of South Africa because people were coming down from the the Indian Ocean in the Indian Ocean trade that occurred in that area for like 900 years. They were coming down the coast, settling Madagascar, and eventually settling the Durban area of South Africa. So there have been Indians and Malay in the country for a long, long time. But they also came down because it was very sparsely populated. And they said, hey, we can set up a trade spot here. People have to come around here because the Suez Canal didn't exist at the time.
Right.
People had had to come around the Cape of Good Hope to go to the Indian Ocean and access a lot of trade. So, of course, the Dutch settled there and had trade routes there because that's what the Dutch have been doing for forever. But yeah, it's like you say, it's a population of people that don't have the same cultural high trust society that we would have, or that these Indian traders would have had, that is trying to integrate, that just has never really integrated.
You're
never really been the same.
You're seeing this happen though, even in American cities where
Totally.
people from other countries come and they kind of, add to the population and they change the culture of the city. You can go to your grocery store. I mean, you go to a Costco and it's completely different. And then the Costco will update the type of food it carries, right? But these cities' cultures are drastically changing because of the different type of people coming in. And the left will prop it up as like, oh, well, we get different, amazing new food. And it's like, yeah, well, okay. But also the culture is changing, and sometimes in a very negative way.
And this is what I hear from a lot of these liberals when they say things like, well, isn't it great that we get Mexican food and we get, soul food and we get these things? And I'm like, yeah, I don't care about the food. I care about in Dearborn, Michigan, where they have this massive rise in female genital mutilation and no law enforcement against it because the community there, it's a natural part of their culture. Or in Sweden, where they had a rise in Afghan refugee children raping little boys, because that is also a practice that occurs in Afghanistan. And I believe the story goes that U.S. Military were instructed not to intervene nor to expose the fact that in Afghanistan, they have a cultural practice where it's kind of like a hazing, where young boys will grab another young boy, pin them down, and rape them.
Are you talking about bachabazi?
Is that what it's called?
It's like the Thursday thing, bachabazi.
I don't know.
I think
I met a guy who was a cop in Sweden who quit, and he explained that there was this is happening because they resettled a bunch of refugees from Afghanistan, and these young boys were going to pools in Sweden and raping little boys because it was a cultural practice they had, and then they were being told not to report it.
Yeah,
it's always about like the left will always ignore this stuff happening, right? And they always go to the food, and it's so funny. I always crack up because somebody will be like, you need to go to this restaurant because it's so authentic, and it's always like a Pablo or somebody like me in the kitchen. It doesn't matter what type of cuisine it is.
It's
true. Like there's a Mexican dude behind the counter.
Like you go to a pizza restaurant, there's a Mexican guy working there.
Like it's authentic, but it's like
the truth is that as a racial group, they're the best chefs, the best cooks.
roofers.
To your point,
according to leftists.
Tony, to your point earlier, I think that it would be very good for the United States to actually make English the national language and stop producing any official federal paperwork in any other language. Nowadays, you can go and get you can get multiple different forms that are required in Chinese. You can get them in any number of different languages. And I think that the first step in getting people to assimilate to American culture, which should be a goal for the United States and is the correct behavior if you're going to go to a new country, the first goal should be get everyone to speak the same language, because if you can't even think in the same language, then you're going to have a more difficult time assimilating to the culture.
People need to understand this. Languages are almost like operating systems for the mind.
100%.
And most people are, I guess, what's the phrase? You'd say monolingual. Speaking one language, they don't really understand that different cultures that speak a different language. You ever encounter someone?
This is so important.
This is right. Have you ever encountered someone and you said, like, what is that? And they go, there's no word in English for it. I'm like, whoa, what do you mean there's no? Then explain it in English as to what you think it is. And they go, I guess you would say it's. What they're literally saying is there is a concept. Yeah. There is something in their mind they can see that they cannot articulate in my language.
So there was actually a trans actor in Hollywood that's going through this whole thing right now because a bunch of inflammatory tweets came out, and they're actually all of them. So she's losing award season because all of this stuff against various groups came out, and they're actually a big part of what they're saying is it's actually worse. All the translated ones for this guy are actually worse if you read it in the native language. And this is actually one of the first things that Hollywood did to try to shame Americans was the idea that you go to they would turn you into a straw man argument where you go to a convenience store and they ask you, it's like, I'm sorry, instead of saying, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, to say, speak English, dude. When we understand that's not really how you think about it, you're like, look, like, I'm sorry, we're having a miscommunication here. I don't speak your language, but that's not interesting because Hollywood is self-hating and they want to portray anyone who isn't multilingual or multicultural as a bad person.
So, thank you. Right. So this is I've been all over the place, and giving thanks expressing gratitude. I always thought it was funny that in Spanish it's gracias, right? And I'm like, that just sounds like you're saying gracious. So you're kind of conveying somewhat of a different idea. When I was in Brazil, I asked my friend, how do you say thank you in Portuguese? As obrigado. And I said, oh, okay, all right, that's simple. And then I saw a sign for parking, and it said something like obrigadorio or something like that. And I was like, why does the parking sign say thank you on it or some form of thank you? And then I said, what does that mean? He goes, oh, it says, it's like, he was explaining that parking sign says that you can't park here for this reason. And I said, why does it say that on there? And he goes, that means your obligation. And I was like, when you guys say thank you, are you saying that I am obligated? And then I started to think about this, and this is something probably linguists have known since they went to college, like their first course. How we express gratitude is conveyed in different ways. Yeah. And when you ask someone to translate it, they're not telling you the actual translation. So when he told me you say obrigado is how you say thank you, in my mind, thank you means to you I am grateful that you have provided something for me. In his mind, he is saying, don't worry, it's an obligation that I have. It's a different concept. Yeah. So when in the United States, now that we're seeing the rise of all these different languages, Phil makes a really great point because many people have pointed out when you don't have a shared language, your culture shatters, and then you end up with vastly different ideas as to what should or should not be and no way to convey them. And then going back to the whole point about food versus law, you end up with places where they have female genital mutilation in Michigan, and then we hear it in the news. The problem is, in a largely Americanized Christian moral tradition area, we are shocked to hear it's happening. And then when you go there, they say, don't interfere in our way of life. This is normal for us.
Yeah, and the left will do that. They'll say, "Oh, we shouldn't change the culture for these countries, right?" But they're totally okay with other countries coming in here and changing the way we do things.
Yeah, that's the cultural relativism.
Yeah, and you have people in the U.S. that have immigrated here, and they've been here for 30, 40 years, and they still don't speak English.
I want to just
that's wild.
Read one super chat before I go to the next story, because Sam's son said, Tim the kind of dude who speaks broken Spanish to Mexican restaurant workers 100%. It is a secret. It is a fact. In Chicago, if you order in Spanish, you get free stuff. Because none of the Mexican restaurants are mad at you for trying to speak their language. It is a sign of respect, and they appreciate it. So when I go in, I say, "Hola, mi amigo, dos tacos de pollo, por favor, más crema, y avocado," or whatever, guacamole. And then they smile and they say, "Yeah, you're trying, buddy." And then they give me free chips.
Yeah.
I learned this when I was 16, and because on the south side of Chicago, you have Mexican restaurants everywhere, and I went with my friend, and she was just like, "Let me order," and she ordered in fluent Spanish. And when they came out, they brought chips, guac, sour cream, salsa, and beans and cheese. And then I was like, "Oh, did you order that?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "They just gave you all that stuff for free?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's what happens when you order in Spanish." And I was like, "Shut up." So then I was at a Mexican restaurant on the north side, and I was like, "I'm gonna order in Spanish." And that's the joke, dos tacos de pollo. And then they gave me free chips and sour cream and dip. And I was just like, I was like, "Hey, I didn't order that." And they were like, "Oh, you're good, man." And I was like, "What?"
And now you're the cool gringo guy.
And speaking,
you're trying to.
People
be nice,
appreciate from other countries you trying their language.
Yeah. But to say that we should have a national language is not to disparage someone else or another culture. It's simply saying everyone in America should be able to understand each other and communicate with each other. If you're going to live here, you should assimilate. You can speak whatever language you want at home. You can, and if you in your neighborhood there are it's predominantly another language that's spoken. That's fine too. But when it comes to interacting in the broader society, there should be it should be English. And again, when I was growing up, it used to be it was when this idea was first becoming taboo, right? There like I remember SOD had a record called Stormtroopers of Death had a record called Speak English or Die, and that was in the early 90s. Wow. And that was not particularly edgy. It was a little on the edgy side, but it wasn't super edgy. But then after, a few years after that came out, people started to say, "Oh, that's kind of, maybe you shouldn't." But it's not about demeaning anyone else. No. It's about making sure that everybody in America has a shared understanding of the world that we live in. And Tim's point about language dictates is like an operating system. That is such a great A great way to describe it, because it really is the word. We think in words, and if we don't have words for things, we can't comprehend it. I don't think there's a word for snow in Hawaiian. They don't need it.
I've heard that. I assume that's true because many of them have never seen it. But my understanding is that in French, there's a phrase or word for. It's described as the feeling that you get when you look down from a great height and want to jump, but know you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I was reading about one African culture that has a word for the feeling you get when you look at a woman or when you look at a person that you deeply love, but you know that they're looking at someone else who they love and care about and that you'll never have them. And it's like, for us to convey that idea, I had to say all that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really funny sometimes when you're watching a show with subtitles and the guy will go like, blah, 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 blah. And then underneath it says, sit down.
Yeah.
And you're like, because they don't have the same way of conveying that idea as simply as we do. But let's jump to this next story from the Daily Wire. Trump revokes Biden's security clearance, cites poor mental acuity. Joe, you're fired. I almost couldn't believe this when I heard. We're set at the show and Kellen was like, hey, they revoked Biden's security clearance. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I think you said, did you just tell him he was fired? And then you pull up the tweet and it's like literally says, Joe, you're fired.
Kellen was like, you're fired, Joe. And I was like, did he actually say you're fired? So here's what Trump said. There's no need for Joe Biden to continue receiving access to classified information. Therefore, we are immediately revoking Joe Biden's security clearances and stopping his daily intelligence briefings. He set this precedent in 2021 when he instructed the intelligence community to stop the 45th president of the United States, me, from accessing details on national security, a courtesy provided to former presidents. The Her report revealed that Biden suffers from poor memory and even in his prime could not be trusted with sensitive information. I will always protect our national security. Joe, you're fired. Make America great again. Wow.
Good.
One of the best examples where the people on the left will be really mad that he did this, not understanding that they did this to him first because they'll expect the Republicans to just lie over and play dead.
Yeah, Independent writes that he did it as revenge against his predecessor, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't care.
Then what did his predecessor do? His predecessor was just getting revenge too.
I mean, right. Biden is genuinely unwell. Yeah. I mean, I don't think even the left, some of the left recognizes this. He's not coherent.
Oh, they all recognize it. They just been lying the whole time. And it's like, what's really crazy? At a certain point, I genuinely do not understand how people watch Brian Tyler Cohen or David Pakman or even to a certain degree like Cenk Uygur. I understand the Young Turks have been like, we're populist and we understand. But I'm like, how does any sane person literally say, I want my tax dollars going to like pottery classes in Morocco? Like, this is the craziest thing about it. How are there people who are actually watching these shows where they're like, how dare Trump shut down the sending of our tax dollars to Morocco for pottery classes? And it's like, do you really want that?
Do you think a lot of them are even realizing that, or they just buy these narratives that Elon Musk is shutting this stuff down to enrich himself or commit identity fraud, which are these weird arguments that they're making?
Well, they're claiming that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think
Elon
you're actually
stole
thinking
the Treasury data.
I think you're thinking about it a lot deeper than the average person who complains about stuff like this. I think most of them never make it past the headline.
Right, but if your argument is that the people who watch David Pakman are dumb as a box of rocks, I'll agree with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even going that far. I'm saying just the people who think in memes and don't really think beyond the headline, I don't think they're actually thinking that far down because they would have to actually read the data on where a lot of this money is going. But do you remember when the girl, what was the program for Pakistan that came out like last year? It was like $10 million to study gender in Pakistan or something like that. And those
studies in Pakistan, it was 12 million in the omnibus.
The point is like we see stuff like that and we get annoyed because we know that these omnibus bills are packed with pork and we understand that this kind of crap comes and goes. But the average person, they just trust a lot of people, they just trust the government when it's Democrats.
So what you're saying is, according to this chart, your average David Pakman viewer would be a 5, and your average Timcast viewer would be a 1.
Look, I make it at least to the 3 there.
I've met people that literally cannot like draw or picture
visualize things.
Yeah, visualize an apple. I met somebody. They say some people don't have an inner voice.
Yeah,
that's just the wildest thing.
That's actually a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a lot.
They think in like abstracts and content. That's crazy to me.
I don't know how that
works. There's a really good Aiden Paladin video on inner monologue.
I don't know how it works. It's like, take a shower.
We have people watch
this
show and they'll comment saying like, I don't think in words. And it's funny, like there was a viral video where a woman was like, you guys hear like words in your head. That's crazy. And it's just like, how do you think? Like, how do you plan things?
I can't imagine how you don't like. I mean, I go around like I'll like walk through the house constantly muttering to myself because I'm thinking out loud, you know. And but it's when I'm around other people, I know that it's a bad thing to mutter, but I'm still thinking the words.
I actually don't have an inner monologue. I have an inner lecture. It's just in my mind. It's Phil sitting in a chair explaining everything to me, and I'm just looking at him going, "That's a good point, Phil." So I'm visualizing it in 3D. You know what I mean?
I'm glad that I can be upset.
I just don't think that a lot of people have even made it as far as to believe anything that they're reading here. They just assume that the government, as long as Democrats are running it, are good people. And if we were sending money over there, they're like, well, there must be a reason.
I think the NPC meme is real.
Yeah.
You know, here's what's happened. There is a finite amount of souls. And so now when there's a lot of people being born, some of them have no souls. Those are NPCs and they vote Democrat. I'm kidding, by the way, but I know they're going to take that seriously and clip that.
I mean, I don't even know.
Christians will get mad too.
I don't even know if it's NPCs. I think it's a lot of it is like nowadays you become a tourist in politics and you read a couple of headlines that really upset you. But we understand that these social media companies did a lot of work to figure out what makes people post on platforms, and stuff that makes you angry gets you to post. So even if you don't read about politics all day, you read something that says that Elon Musk is stealing social security numbers, whatever this bullshit that the stuff that they're reading, and that gets them to post on it, but they're not actually doing the legwork to look into this stuff. And if they did, I don't know if they'd believe it because they've been lied to their whole lives.
Now we've got like
NPC.
these fake, we've got these on NPC, we've got these fake profiles now, like Facebook's making AI accounts.
Yeah,
right?
they admitted
And
it, didn't they?
Yeah, there was a company I read recently that they do like AI support, like customer support, and they were making AI LinkedIn profiles for their quote unquote employees, which is just AI. And people were like, they were applying for jobs and like open to work, right? And these aren't real people. And LinkedIn banned them.
Guys, have you seen Westworld? Did you watch Westworld, Brett?
First season.
You didn't watch beyond the first season?
First season.
So I watched the first season, then stopped, and then recently started watching the second and third. The premise of the show, it's an old show, so I'll just spoiler alert. The purpose of, so you know what Westworld is?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've never watched.
Yeah, like you go to this fake planet where it's like you get to pretend to be a cowboy and do whatever you want. They were actually mapping people's behaviors and mapping their personalities to create profiles of the person. And then they were replicating them as these androids. And so basically the bad guy, this woman, you know, Evan Rachel Wood, is killing humans and then using the data on them that they've stored from collecting their profile and then putting their their copy into a robot body. So we're very much getting to that point when they're creating AI profiles for people without them knowing. And there's let me tell you guys, you want something scary? I think it's now becoming clear why Elon Musk bought X. Do you know why he did? Why he bought Twitter? The best training algorithm for an LLM.
Yeah.
That's it. The best training model. You can take all of the articles from Huffington Post and Breitbart and the New York Times and whatever, or you can have what they call the fire hose. That is the massive stream of human consciousness, and Grok is absorbing it all.
I think that, I mean, between the 15 years that Tesla has been taking data from Tesla vehicles that were out in the road or on the road, and the enormous amount of data that's in X, he might have the largest database, might have actual ownership of the largest database for AI to exploit in the world.
And Tesla's incentivizing people now to use their full self-driving with insurance discounts. Like if you have a Tesla and you use it's in trial period, so not everybody gets this. But if you use a certain percentage of your driving is done with full self-driving, you will get a percentage discount.
Yeah, that's all. That's 99% of my driving.
Yeah,
and the only reason I say 99 is because when I'm parking, even though they can park themselves now, but usually. So the problem with full self-driving is it can't navigate non-map streets. So when you're in a rural area, it will. So what it does is, like, if I put an address in a rural area, the car will drive past the address. Yeah. Because you have to stop and then go down a dirt road, which is like, it's a big acreage. So that's the only 1%. Usually I'm just sitting there with my eyes. This is what I do. This is how I drive my Tesla. I go like this. I put these things on, and then I just sit back and go. And then I'm kidding, by the way. Don't do that. But the way Tesla works is they have a camera that watches everything you do. And if your eyes go off the road, even to look at your Spotify or whatever, the screen starts flashing, and then it's like, pay attention to the road, and then it'll turn red and then shut off. So don't do that. People were doing crazy stuff, though, with it. They were putting weights on the steering wheel, but now you don't need it. Now you can literally just press the button, you click the wheel, and you sit there. And then the car just drives itself 100%.
But you still have to look at the road, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're looking at the road.
But I heard Musk was talking about it a couple weeks ago. He believes that in third or fourth quarter 2025 or first quarter 2026, they'll release full self-driving unsupervised.
So I can sit in the back of my car?
So you could, well, yeah, that's what the Tesla taxi is. So like that, the technology that's in your full self-driving car is what they're putting in the Tesla taxi. Once the Tesla taxi is actually on, is deployed, it's the same thing.
I'll tell you one of the scariest things, though. I don't see it being ready. One of the Teslas can't drive on hills. That's just it. Full self-driving cannot deal with hills.
Why?
It cannot see over them. And so we have out here a lot of hills with curves. Every single time in full self-driving, it will go up the hill and into the wrong lane a few inches. It'll go over the median and then swerve right back once it realizes, because it's all camera-based. And it's kind of surprising to me because the road is mapped out. On my screen, it knows the curve is coming, but it goes up the hill, and then I'm thinking to myself, if there's a car coming the other way, we're colliding. Just boom. Nothing is. And there was also an instance I had a few months ago where a car stopped to make a right turn, and the Tesla did not. And then right when I was probably like 2 inches, I just rammed the wheel to the left and onto the wrong side of the road to stop it from hitting a car. So it's getting there.
But that's the grandiose stuff. You were talking about the Facebook stuff, and I think they ended up getting, like, they pulled back on that program with the AI influencers and stuff, because it's a way to bump their numbers so they can sell advertising on Meta. And, like, did you see the video of the guy who broke the AI, the female AI influencer on there? It's
What do you
really
mean broke it?
like just got it turned it into like an Uber racist.
Oh well, yeah. That happens with every AI. As soon as word gets out that there's an AI, like the trolls are like, "All right, let's go start uploading Hitler stuff."
The boomers can't handle the AI images though. Like,
No,
they can't recognize it. Like it breaks their mind, and they love it though. They'll post like what politician was it when they had there was like flooding or something, and she posted a picture of a girl holding a teddy bear, and it was like AI generated photo. And people were like, yeah, this is AI. And she just she refused to like recognize it for a bit. I don't remember. But the boomers, the AI is a disaster for them. It's a total disaster for them.
Yep.
It's okay though, because they're boomers and
we love them.
We do love. Well, yes, I mean
boomers.
we do love them, but like, look, it's normal for older people to struggle with technology. I think partially that's because they don't expose themselves to it as much as younger people do. People kind of get set in their ways, and they're just like, I'm going to do this. I mean, I'm definitely of the age where a lot of my peers are like not particularly savvy with technology because of, I think, what I do, and because of kind of like my lifestyle and stuff. I am more savvy than the average person that's my age. But I imagine that it'll come in time.
Yeah, we're all going to go through it. There's going to be something that happens that makes us all be able to handle that.
Something very important I want everybody to know, and this could actually help you in your day-to-day life today. As we enter this AI future, I'd like you just to remember this question to ask if ever you are confused and wondering if you're dealing with an AI. You say, you're in a desert walking along in the sand, when you suddenly spot a tortoise lying on its back, its belly baking in the hot sun, it's struggling, trying to turn itself over, but it can't. You're not helping it. Why? That's a very important question.
I mean, I kind of feel like I would help it.
Yeah, why wouldn't you help it?
That's interesting. How about, let's try another one. Let's try this. Describe in single words only the good things that come into your mind about your mother.
Oh, sweet, fun, funny.
Interesting, indeed. You're watching television and suddenly realize there's a wasp crawling on your arm.
I'm having a bad day.
Panic.
Anxiety.
I feel like I'm falling into the "but you did eat breakfast" trap right now.
It's your birthday and someone gives you a calfskin wallet. How do you react?
I mean, I personally don't.
The chat knows exactly what I'm doing. You guys are
don't.
you're in trouble.
I don't.
You guys are in trouble. You're going to be owned by the robots. They're gonna walk up to you and you're gonna say, I will do anything you say, robot overlord.
I mean, the context is I'm here with someone that I know, so it's a little different. But why? Go ahead.
That's from Blade Runner.
Oh, is it really?
It's the replicant test
Oh, okay.
to see if they were human or not. You ask them these questions. That's what you got to do.
So like a Turing test for AI.
The answers are the answers dictating whether or not.
The point of the test is not that there's a right answer. It's how you react to it. You know what? A better example. I really love this scene in Sherlock Holmes. What is it? It was
Johnny,
the Game of Shadows or whatever the
second one. The second one.
Yeah, they're trying to find a guy who's gotten surgery to look like some government official, and they're like, "How do we do it? Like people are just at a party," and then Watson says, "It's not that we're trying to find someone who's acting abnormally. It's that." Someone who can't react abnormally. And so he hits a tray of drinks, causing the drinks to shatter. And then the normal reaction everybody has is shock. But the one guy desperately trying to hold it together doesn't react because he doesn't know how he's supposed to fake a reaction to this. And so that's how they find him. My point is, we got a lot of NPCs in politics. And now we've got AI profiles, dead internet theory. This is the scariest thing. I'd be willing to bet my friends 90%, maybe not 90, but maybe around that, 90% of the people who you talk to on social media aren't real.
Like at least as far as like reactions, likes, and responses to the stuff that you're posting.
Well, there was a story I saw a while ago. I don't know how true it is that Facebook was going to intentionally. You brought this up.
That was the point. Yeah,
they were intentionally creating fake profiles to interact with you.
The AI profiles were being taught language models so that they would interact with you because it helps bolster ad revenue because they can start selling ads on all of their stuff. Yeah, that's.
Yep.
And even that, they're not disclosing that to these companies, right?
The crazy thing too is that for a couple of years now, there are fake female influencers, and
they're advertised that way too. People like the new generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they actually follow them knowing that they're fake because they live their whole lives behind a screen. They don't actually care.
This is wild. Yeah. But I remember there was one meme. There was a meme, and it was a clearly AI woman, and there was just like a Facebook profile of like a late 50s guy with like a white mustache, and then he said like, "You're so beautiful," and people were like, "This is sad, man."
Yeah, you look at the comment section of any of these, like they pop up on Instagram, and there's like these fake AI women, and the comments are just totally just dudes just all in love with them. It's
but
insane.
here's the terrifying reality. What if? So I know there's people watching this show. How do I know? Well, like I meet them in real life, so I know there's actually people who watch. What happens when in 5 years? People are like, "Oh, I love Timcast IRL. I watch that show all the time." Yeah, it's the 734th biggest podcast in the world, but I watch it sometimes. What's the biggest podcast in the world? Oh, it's Jack Smith and Friends. And then this podcast, Jack Smith and Friends, gets 17 million views per episode. All of the views come from AI profiles that were created by big corporations for one reason or another. So nobody is actually watching the show, but advertisers buy on the show. The AI profiles promote the products because they're AI designed to talk about what was on the show. And this person with zero influence is the biggest show in the world and makes tons of money.
You're seeing that in on X and Instagram, and this has been happening forever, where people would buy followers, right? You can go on a website and you can buy Instagram followers, and it was always a giveaway because somebody would have like 10,000 followers on their Instagram page, and they'd have like 2 likes on a post, right? You see that now currently on X.
I always like to compliment. There's a few people out there who run podcasts, and when people ask me, it's like, "Have you ever gone to this person's show?" I just respond with, "No, but I'm really impressed when someone has the ability to get 500,000 views on a podcast with 7 comments." And then they go, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing. Just no big deal." But here's the reality. You'll notice that there are a lot of people, and maybe we should be doing, I don't know. There are a lot of people who like to post their numbers publicly. They'll tweet out like, Look at us, look at our rankings, look at our viewership, look at our numbers. And it's clout building. And so there are a lot of podcasts out there that lie about their audience size, but it doesn't matter because with that lie, they're able to book big names.
Yeah, you fake it till you make it.
Or just fake it. That's it. Like, because these shows still aren't big. But, there are some shows you'll see a clip pop up, and I'm like, how did they book this actor or whatever? And then I can see that they've got huge numbers on their podcasts, but no comments, no likes, no interactions. And when they, like, these talent agencies, when they have celebrities, when they have high profile people, they don't know or care. They get a press kit and a request saying, we have a podcast with insert however many million followers. Our average video gets X many views. Would you like to come on the show? And they go, this would be huge. And then I talk to some of these people and I say, you actually went on those shows? And they'll be like, yeah, I mean, they're big, right? And I'm like, no. And they're like, but they get tons of views. And I was like, it's amazing that you actually went out and went on a show without doing any research. And they're like, well, how are we supposed to know? Like my guy plays golf. He doesn't build media companies. We just saw that this guy gets millions of views. And I was like, indeed he does. Indeed he does.
I mean, it's even worse now in the age of like the Zoom interview where they'll go on channels that have not even like the fake views, right? Not even like the fake engagement. They'll just do that because there are what are called approved media outlets for a lot of these people to cover. So it's getting worse.
You see this a lot though with like organizations, and it'll be like an organization has a really fancy name, and the guy will introduce himself. He's like, "I'm the president, CEO, blah 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 blah," and it's like, you've got one employee, dude. Like, what are you doing with this title? You know?
Yeah, that was always funny to me because I remember when I first started working with my buddies to make businesses, and my friend was like, "I'll be the chief operating officer," and I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Is that how that works?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I was like, you just say you are? And they're like, yeah. And then I was like, and then I remember when I got hired at Fusion, I was like, they were like, we'll have you as a senior correspondent. I was like, nah, I want to be a director. And they're like, okay. And so they just made my job title a director.
Just give you a name tag that says director on it.
And I was like, doesn't director have like some kind of managerial implications? And they were like, yeah, but you won't have any staff, so it won't matter. And I was like, yeah, let's go.
So it won't matter. Yeah.
But this is how a lot of these companies work, because when you say that, like, I was a director of insert, project for a couple of years, they go, oh, wow, oh, geez. And so everybody's just lying about their titles. And so then me and my buddies, once we made jokes that our titles were like absolutely insane, like senior vice president of directorial management and overseeing the chief executive suite and like foreign relations.
It's for the LinkedIn of it all, so they can get their next job.
Yeah, these companies don't check that.
Yeah.
They don't check that at all.
There was some big scandal where a guy used an AI to create a resume. And it was like getting picked up because they use AI to search through all the resumes to pick who it was. He exploited their AI. And what he did was he made a resume and then took all of the buzzwords that were required by the algorithm and put them in white text, super tiny in the bottom corner. So when the resume was scanned by the company's AI, it saw all of the words it was programmed to look for and brought his resume to the top and said he was the best candidate. And then the company was like, the program says he's the guy. And that he just gamed the system.
Yeah, people are doing that with their websites. If you don't want your website like harvested from AI or Google search results, they'll hide like an F-bomb in it so it doesn't get picked up.
Let's jump to this next story. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a tweet from Doge. It simply says, unburdened by what has been.
Can't stop winning.
And it is a before U.S. Agency for International Development and an after. And the sign has been removed. We have this video here. End wokeness says directly into my veins. And it is a man on a cherry picker removing the title from the building. And you can see that the name has been removed from the building, I guess, what do you call it? Like sign, I guess.
Yeah.
And USA Today says USAID signs pulled from HQ as judge puts limited block on Trump bid to dismantle agency. Well, I'm pretty sure he already did. So they can, the judges can do all of this stuff, but Trump can move at lightning speed. And you know what? I'm here for it. When Cuomo was shutting down churches and they sued and the judge said you can't do that, he went, okay, crumbled up the executive order, signed another one and said, sue that. And it's not literally what he did, but it's basically that's what he was doing. So even though the judges were like, this is unconstitutional, he says, I can sign an executive order faster than you can sue me. So if that's the game they want to play and Trump is doing it to shut down the deep state slush fund, then okay. Look, I said this before. I'm not going to cry when the Democrats. They vote. They said this my whole life. Oh, if we stop them from doing insert thing, one day they'll use this against us. It was a big deal with the filibuster. They were like, oh, they got rid of the filibuster. It's going to come back to bite them. And I'm like, so Democrats do evil thing, And the response is, but if we stop evil thing, maybe in the future, evil thing will happen to us. And I'm like, but they're literally doing it right now. If we don't stop them from using USAID, or it's like if we use the force of government to shut down USAID, when they get in power, they'll do something. And I'm like, they are using this machine of evil to destroy our lives. And you're worried about the evil that may come after the evil destroys us.
Republicans have suffered from this historically, not using the power they get when they win their elections.
Yeah, they're terrified.
Yeah, they're terrified.
They're terrified to use their power whenever they're in office because there's a media apparatus that will frame every single thing they do in the worst possible light, which is how they've changed the, at least in the past before the internet, how they framed public perception of them as this inherently evil party. Because every time they say do exactly to them what you're accused of doing, which is what the left has done for a long time. So Republicans are afraid to do it back because they feel like they're going to get labeled a certain way, which then they do by, press that's in cahoots with Democrat donors and organizations, and they never use their power, and they always snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Well, Trump ain't.
No.
Trump is like,
it's 'cause he doesn't
I'm going
care.
to burn it down.
It's because he doesn't care, right? That's the whole point, and people have been looking forward to this. We were talking about Seamus's sketch yesterday where he's playing the video where like Trump did this, aren't you sad you
That was
voted
so
Republican?
good.
They're like, no, like I'm sad. I guess I'm sad for every time I voted for Republican before and they didn't do it.
I think that
Wait. I got to shout out Freedom Tunes.
Yeah.
It's all of these leftists. There's a guy in a MAGA hat, and they're like, "Oh no, Trump is deporting tons of people. You must regret your vote now." And he's like, "No, I'm actually pretty happy about it." And then they throw up some more things, and they're like, "I bet you regret voting Republican now." And he goes, "Well, now that I know it's possible to do this, I regret voting for every other Republican."
Yeah.
But here's, I don't want to ruin the punchline, but the ending is masterfully done. You need to go to Freedom Tunes and watch the regret the vote one because the twist ending. I'm not gonna spoil it. Watch you're gonna laugh your ass off.
the way that people are behaving towards the government, I think it really it speaks to the different way that people kind of conceive of the government. Trump's going after everything because he doesn't think anything in the government's sacred. It's all just is it functional or is it not functional? Is it fit for purpose or is it not fit for purpose? Just because it's a part of the government doesn't mean it's sacred. The people on the left, now granted, there are some that are worried about their pocketbooks, right? The USAID is just a slush fund. It's a money laundering scheme. There are, out of all the stuff that I've heard that Doge has focused on, there is absolutely nothing that it does that is necessary for the United States. Absolutely nothing. And it spends $50 billion a year, if I understand correctly. David Sachs was talking about, I was listening to the All In podcast this morning, and David Sachs was talking about the amount of money that the USAID spent was $50 billion a year. That's a lot of money. And there is nothing that it needs, like nothing that it does that sounds to me at all necessary. So the idea that this is some kind of sacred cow is held on the left. And there are people that are knee-jerk reactions, that have a knee-jerk reaction to it, and then there are people that are actually getting rich off of it. If you drive to Washington, D.C. from here, right, you'll go through a part of Virginia where Langley is. You'll literally, there's one of the routes will take you literally right by the entrance to the CIA headquarters. There are literal palaces on the way.
Bro.
There are some of the most opulent and extravagant homes that I've ever seen in my life. And I've been to Calabasas. I've been to Pacific Palisades in California. I've hung out with, wealthy producers and wealthy rock stars. And I've seen Kanye's house. I haven't seen Kanye's house. There's a gate in Calabasas where the Kardashians live. But either way, I've seen the neighborhood, right? I've seen the beautiful homes out there, and the homes in and around Langley, Virginia, are literal palaces. They are they're totally opulent, totally extravagant, and all of that money is being extracted from the U.S. taxpayer.
Not just that. I mean, you've got Tyson's.
Yep.
You've got what's the name? Is it Potomac? You've got Reston is beautiful.
Just go driving to DC. You go through the wine country here, and there's all these vineyards that are privately owned by people that likely made their money in Washington, D.C.
That was actually something I thought was interesting to bring up. I was going to say, what was interesting was that you go through a lot of them, right? So when you go through farmland, there were Trump signs everywhere. When you go through vineyards, there were Biden-Harris signs on every single one of the entrances. Absolutely. Yep.
You know, I mean, the small houses in that area are, $1-2 million.
Oh, man.
And a $2 million home, that's a nice house.
Yep.
And they're big houses, and they're in a neighborhood, but they've got a decent amount of land between their houses. They're on probably 3-4 acre lots, but they're gorgeous.
I heard they're building a casino in Tyson's. Bro, anybody who's been to the D.C. area, go to the Tyson's Galleria. And so I think that's the place, right?
The mall out there?
Yeah, but it's not a mall for any regular human being.
No.
I was like, where's the greasy cheeseburger hole in the wall? And it's like everything is like designer handbags. There is a Brunswick downstairs, and that was fun. But it's the best Brunswick I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Bowling and pizza. And they have all the fun games. They have the arcade axe throwing. But, we were like, let's go to the mall. And we went there, and I was like, there's nothing of use in this mall. It's just like all super high-end, expensive clothes and
who
bags.
comes here?
Yeah, it's just weird.
Politicians and lobbyists. That's who goes there.
Yeah, man. Reston's beautiful too. These areas are. Look, man. We went to Reston to get food, and in city center they were doing a Disney musical singing thing where like there were a bunch of people all sitting in this beautiful park. It's very well kept. Everything is clean. There's no litter, and then they were singing Disney songs, and it was some of the best singing I've ever heard. And I was just like, this is the capital of the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where they strip the money from the working class and fuel their ridiculous opulent lives. I love that word, by the way, Phil. Good choice of words.
Thank you. My ex-wife used to work in Tyson's when she worked for Palantir. And, like we would go, the offices are gorgeous, and they have catering all the time, and they had this big Lego Death Star, and it was, this whole like, nerds with endless money. And it's in this beautiful office building, and all the malls around are gorgeous. And that's just in the business area. The houses out there, it's ridiculous how gorgeous these things are. And again, this is all money extracted from the American people. It's a
Loudoun County, baby.
And Loudoun County. And a lot of the people who work for the weapons companies are all out there as well.
Yeah. I honestly, this is going to sound a little, this is actually going to sound neocon-y, but I have less hate for the people that contract with DOD than I do with people that are working with USAID. Yeah. Because USAID is pushing an ideology. At least the people that are working with DOD and contracting with DOD, at the very least, there is a constitutional mandate for the federal government to defend the country.
Also think of what you were saying about
There's
how
no federal mandate for trans dress shows.
The anger that you said that that people are feeling for tearing down USAID because the people on the left do have this they treat the government as a savior to them. Yeah. And that's why they were in a lot of ways so offended by what happened on January 6th, because they felt that their cathedral was actually being attacked because they see the government as above all else. And if you start looking at it that way, you start to understand why their mania for government is so strong.
McLean, Virginia.
Yep.
I don't want to pull these up because I'm looking up Zillow.
Where's the mall out there with medieval times? That one's good.
I don't want to show
some medieval times. That one's
for,
I kind of want to go.
For me.
I have the mall with medieval times.
Yeah.
That's just in.
That's what I'm saying, like.
No, that's what you call it. That's
I forget that town name.
Arundel Mills or whatever.
That's my tax bracket. I can afford that.
But that place is amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Medieval Times is
massive.
Yeah, and it's around rather than up. It's crazy.
Yeah, but like that mall is ridiculously massive. There's also the Maryland Live, and then there's Dave & Buster's, and there's Bass Pro Shops. That's in an insanely massive shopping center. It's always super packed. They got great Korean barbecue.
I love Korean barbecue.
It's the best thing ever.
It is.
It's like they bring you raw meat and they're like, it cooks in front of you and then you eat it. And I'm like, say no more. Like, I don't need anything special. They don't come over and they do the pepper, it's nothing fancy. Although the kimchi is pretty good. Man, I'm looking at I remember driving through, I think it was McLean, and just, it's crazy because I'm driving past all these houses as we're driving back from DC. And I'm just thinking to myself, what does this person do to afford such a house? It is insanity to me. It's genuinely crazy.
Transsexual drum lessons in Africa.
Yeah.
And anyone that's watching, if you want, you can go ahead and just you can go into Google Maps and look at Langley, Virginia. You can see the CIA headquarters. Look at the houses surrounding it. Look at the absolute monstrosities that are around the CIA headquarters. They're gigantic, just a couple miles around.
Is Langley its own city or is that McLean?
I think I'm not sure.
I typed Langley into Zillow and it pulls up McLean.
That could be it then.
No, I don't think that's where Langley is it? That's further south, I thought. I don't know. Whatever. All I know is the wealthiest places in the world surround DC and they ain't building cars.
Nope.
No, they're doing...
No, they're taking your money.
Yeah.
They're taking your money.
Indeed. Here's a $40 million house. Oh, my God.
They're taking your money and not giving it to people in Hawaii or North Carolina.
Let me tell you a story, right? So the story of the castle, our first studio, was that the family that lived there used to be a very small, 2-bedroom house, and there was a fire. And so this is what they told us. They got insurance money, and then with the insurance money, they built a massive house, a 10,000 square foot house, and then instantly regretted building such a massive house and then sold it and moved. And, I asked one of the family members, what was wrong with you guys, a family of 5 in a 10,000 square foot house? I mean, it sounds like a lot of space. And they said the wife would be upstairs and yell to the kids and they couldn't hear her.
Yeah.
So she'd walk around this 10,000 square foot property trying to find out where the kids were, and she couldn't find out where they were, and she got really frustrated and annoyed. Not to mention, if you don't go into one part of the house and a pipe bursts and you don't notice it because you haven't gone in there in 3 days, when you're in a small house, you notice these things. You go to the basement, do your laundry, pipe bursts, you're like, uh-oh. You go back upstairs to the kitchen. But they ended up building this big house, regretted it, and said, we can't live like this. And I'm like, I learned that lesson a long time ago. I rented a big house, thinking it would be really cool to have a big house and a big property. And then one of the rooms had a bunch of spiders, cobwebs, dirt, garbage. And I was like, yo, this sucks.
Just seal the room forever.
Yeah, so now my house right now is 1,500 square feet. I'm like, I don't want to live in a big house. So I look at these mansions. What people need to understand about these mansions, I'm looking at one in McLean right now. It's $40 million. It's 14,000 square feet. You legit need a staff. Yeah. You need to hire a house of that size is probably going to need 2 or 3 people. Because you need it to be checked every day. Someone's going to have to go with a checklist into every room every day to make sure that the window didn't break, the window's sealed, bugs didn't get in, and it's going to cost you, that's a salary. And the reason you got to have more than one is because people need days off, and they can only work in the morning. So, or they can only work an 8-hour shift. They're not going to work 16 hours a day. You can maybe have someone be live-in service, and then they live there, and you're hoping that by living there. So I'm just wondering, what kind of person wants to live that way? I just don't get it. That's crazy to me. When I see these houses in Virginia and stuff, I'm like, who would want to live there?
Well, and the worst part is a lot of them are claiming and living in a life of public service, right? Is that they're attached to government, which means you shouldn't. It's awful.
Yeah, the idea that some of the most lucrative jobs in the world are somehow connected to the government, that's a bad thing.
Well, I went to Wellington, New Zealand, and that's the name of it. And when I asked the locals, so what's the industry of Wellington? They said government. The only reason the city exists is because they tax the people in Auckland and then use the money to set up Wellington.
Like Chicago.
Is that what Chicago is?
Yeah, it's all government. Everybody works government.
Oh, wow.
Raising the tax dollar, or raising the taxes.
What does Chicago produce?
A long time ago, they produced organized crime.
Good
Yeah, but I mean, Chicago is part of the Rust Belt. So I think it's a great question that y'all out there can ask. If you ever go to a city, ask what the city's industry is and where does the money come from.
Somebody brought up the other day that like there's not a lot of famous people that live in Chicago.
I think Barstool's in Chicago now, right?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of shipping so you can get into the Great Lakes, and then that stuff can kind of get through the Midwest that way. So I think that there's probably imports and exports and shipping and stuff like that. I don't know exactly.
That's why there's so many toll roads.
I would say 15, 20 years ago and before, Chicago being a very large city but still isolated from the ports was culturally limited. And so most of the people that I knew from Chicago wanted to get out as soon as possible. The funny thing about Chicago is it's a very big city, and there are things that are famous in Chicago that are famous nowhere else, and it's weird to me. I remember growing up in Chicago. I leave. I go all over. I remember I went to New York for the first time, and I went to a bodega and I said, "Can I get a roast beef and cheddar with giardiniera?" And the guy was like, "And what?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Roast beef and cheddar sub with giardiniera." And he's like, "Sub?" And I was like, "A sub?" And he's like, "We don't have that." And I was like, "A long sandwich?" He goes, "A hero?" And I was like, "Yeah." Okay, roast beef and cheddar hero with giardiniera. And he goes, "Bro, I don't know what that word is." And I was like, what? And then I asked everybody, do you know what, it was like being in the Twilight Zone. In Chicago, every store everywhere serves giardiniera. And you get on your pizza, you get on your sandwiches, and it's the best thing ever. Then you leave Chicago. There are a bunch of bands that are famous in Chicago that no one's ever heard of. It's an isolated little space. But what's changed now, Chicago's become very viable in the internet era. Doesn't matter where you live anymore, as long as you got good internet. So I think Barstool is in Chicago now because you probably get cheap rates. The problem I would have, because the Chicagoland area is actually really great. O'Hare is a major travel hub, and it's easy to access from single flights. Whereas if you go to a smaller city, you have to buy, it's going to have to be a connecting flight for most people. With Chicago, it's a hub. The problem with Chicago is it's basically as corrupt can be. One of the most corrupt places I've ever been to. The police operate black sites. They will wrongfully arrest you. And famously in Chicago, there's a guy who would electrocute people into false confessions. And rest assured, even if you are famous and well known, they'll plant drugs on you and destroy your life. It is deeply corrupt, and I would stay away from that city.
It's like North Minneapolis when all the stuff that was going on with George Floyd. I'm like, yeah, that was bad, but Minneapolis cops have been corrupt for years, so that's not shocking to me. And Minnesota's kind of the same way. There's a lot of major, like Target is located in the Twin Cities, or 3M, and the city I grew up in was Woodbury, so they put 3M in like East St. Paul, but nobody who came there to work wanted to live in East St. Paul because it just wasn't a good area at the time. So they built a suburb just down the street from there, and then all of the other suburbs on the other side of the city, it's all people who work at Target headquarters or Best Buy headquarters.
So just to clarify, Barstool's headquarters is New York, but they have a significant presence in Chicago, like particularly significant, which I wish Chicago was not corrupt.
It's never going to happen. I don't think not in our lifetime.
Oh yeah, deeply racially segregated. Bro, you where I grew up, you cross Cicero and like everything's Hispanic. You cross 47th, everything's black. It's like the white people live here, the Latinos are here, and the black people are here, and you can't cross the line. Now the funny thing is, crossing Cicero, this would be to the east, going west to east. Nobody really cared. None of the Latinos, the Hispanics, the migrants had any problem with white people or Asians or even black people. You'd go there, you'd go to the restaurants, it was totally fine. But crossing 47th to the north into the black neighborhoods, you're gonna get beat up, or you're gonna get arrested. The cops would or detained. The cops would drive up, grab you, and say, "There's no reason for a person, Latino, Asian, or white person to be in a black neighborhood. You must be buying drugs." That's legit what would happen every time. Almost nobody would ever cross. However, if the black people from that neighborhood, and I'm not talking about regular people, I'm saying if like criminal elements of either side, if a criminal gangbanger on the Latino side went to the black neighborhood, the cops stop it immediately. However, if the black criminal elements would go from the racially segregated area to the north into the other areas, the cops were like, we can't do anything about it because we'll be called racist. So you had this really weird, racist, racially segregated dynamic in the city. It's a crazy way to grow up, man.
The black community is getting frustrated with their mayor, though, because like Chicago has a black mayor now.
Yeah.
Lightfoot's out, right? And it's the new guy's like arguably worse. And I was watching. My father still lives in Chicago, and he sent me this video from a city council meeting, and this black woman gets up and she's like just lighting into the mayor because they're upset that all their funding and all their everything is going to illegals. It's going to Hispanics.
yeah.
Right? And so they're furious with it. She called him the N-word at a city
Whoa!
council. I was like, whoa, this is insane. Right?
Did you? There was they were screaming, "We are being replaced." They were like protesting, chanting that they were being replaced, and it was funny because I don't know if Tucker commented on it, but we talked about it when it happened, and I was like, I thought when Tucker said Americans were being replaced by illegal immigrants, they called him racist, but now you have the black community in Chicago saying it. Where's the corporate press? Come on, call them racist, call them white supremacists, call it a conspiracy theory. But I'll tell you what's really crazy. I don't know if you saw this. If you take a look at the district map by how they voted and put it next to a racial demographic map, people in Chicago, probably 80%, voted for their candidate based on their race.
Yeah.
That's just it. That's the only reason.
You see that everywhere, though.
There was only one area of Chicago that didn't vote for each area of Chicago, the racial majority district voted for the candidate who matched their racial their race. One neighborhood did not do this. What neighborhood do you think it was?
A white neighborhood.
Which one?
Oh, I don't know.
Loyola. The north young college area near Loyola, which is predominantly white, voted for Brandon Johnson. And so when you look at the voting map in Chicago, the Hispanic neighborhood voted for the Hispanic candidate.
Yeah.
The white neighborhoods voted for the white candidate, and the black neighborhoods voted for the black candidate. And there's no escaping that happened. You can make up any reason you want. It literally happened. Except Loyola, where it's largely young white people, voted for a black candidate. And that's why you ended up with Brandon Johnson.
And you do know that those people think they're better than everyone else because they did that too.
Yeah, they'll brag about it. They'll say, "Oh, I voted."
Yes,
for the black.
I am better than
Wasn't
you
there
because I didn't. I'm not. I do not have local affinity or whatever you want to call
Wasn't
it.
there some YouTube video where they took like people from every race and they asked them if they felt pride in their race race?
yeah,
and like the white guy was the only one that was like, I feel shame for being white, but like the Asians, the Mexicans, the blacks, they were all like super prideful.
Well, also,
so white people are the only group with a racial outgroup preference, and it's predominantly among liberals. And so this creates a broken pressure system in politics. Look, man, you want to cry about it all day and night? I'm right here with you. It is a bad thing that in Chicago, every district voted based on race. I think that's a bad thing. I think this is going to lead to racial tensions, racism, racial animosity, all of that stuff. But when you have white liberals with an outgroup preference, what's going to happen then is the Asian neighborhoods, the Hispanic neighborhoods, the black neighborhoods are going to have in-group preference, meaning when it comes time to vote, they are going to vote against other racial groups. I'm saying straight up, Latino groups vote for only their neighborhood and their interests, and against black, Asian, white, or otherwise. Every racial group does this, and then whites vote against themselves. So who's going to end up on the bottom end of all of these policies? It's going to be the white people.
And to your point, it's so extreme. In Texas, we have a city in North Dallas, and they had there was a race, and there was an Asian woman who was a Democrat and an Asian woman who was a Republican. And the Asian community and they were running. One was running for mayor, one was running for city council place, and the Asian community voted for both, even though they were completely opposite ideologies. And it's because they're Asian. Right, so
it's
very deep.
People say demographics are destiny. The Ro Khanna, when he was on the show a couple weeks ago, said that the leftist dream of this multicultural globalist society failed, and we were wrong. And I was like, whoa. And he said we thought it was going to lift everybody up and create this utopia, and all it did was gut the working class. And I said, yes. Like, wow, that's Ro Khanna. He's a Democrat.
That's why people were talking about the dangers of critical theory for so long, right? Is that it uniquely attacked white in-group preference because so many white Americans were taught to feel shame about their own background.
What an insane reality to live in where, like, I look, I don't like any racial supremacists. Okay? Like, bro, if you want to come to me and tell me that you think you're better because of your race, I'm going to show you everyone I can of a different race who's more successful than you are. Perseverance is all that matters. You've got people who emigrate from Nigeria, and as they say, like on average, they make more money and are more successful than your average American of any other race. Well, the argument is the people from Nigeria who have the merit and the ability and make the money and then can afford to leave are the best, the cream of the crop. They come to this country and they succeed. Clearly, there's no issue with them being black. They found more success than any other race.
Which is why legal immigration was actually a unifying factor for a long period of time, because when they came to America, they were desirous to move here because they believed in what we stood for, and we knew that we were getting the ones that were going to work the hardest to get ahead.
That's why legal immigration is a good thing.
Yep.
That's why illegal immigration is a bad thing. And I partly blame Ronald Reagan for his amnesty. I mean, that dude did, it's
Serge is
The most overrated.
Oh, dude, I
So
can't.
overrated.
Look, I am flabbergasted by these boomer cons who
They
were like,
love him.
Reagan was the best. And I was like, what about illegal immigration amnesty, no fault divorce, gun control? I mean, the list goes on. What about all of those things are you happy about?
Yeah, and you ask them and their brain breaks. Like they don't even know how to argue about it.
Carter was so bad, and I wasn't alive at the time, but my presumption on all this is Carter was so miserably bad that when Reagan reversed the bad by I guess just relative principle, he appeared really good.
Yep.
And so they were like, Reagan was the best. And I'm like,
Well, they missed the time, not the actual policies.
Yeah.
Right?
you know, it's there's this funny story that I've probably told 800 million times, but there's I can't remember which airport it was. It might have been in Texas. They thought it'd be really great and convenient if right when you come out of the gate and land, your baggage claim is right there.
At DFW, yeah.
It was DFW.
Yeah.
They were like, they said, isn't it annoying when you land and you got to walk across the entire airport to get your bag? Let's just put the baggage claim right there. Well, guess what happened? People got off their plane, stood next to the baggage claim, and had to wait 10 or 15 minutes and started complaining, saying, why is it taking so long to get my bags? And they were like, because the bags have to come to the thing. So they figured out the solution. The solution was they moved the baggage claim to the other side of the airport. So it took you 10 minutes to walk there, but then your bags were coming out right when you got there.
It's still like that though, a little bit. I mean, you know, like I'll land and then you're waiting around, you're on your phone waiting.
It's true.
For things. But like you land, like when I was coming here, you land and you know the baggage claim is like super far, and you're busy. You're walking, you're checking your phone,
Yep.
you're making a phone call, so you don't realize that you've been waiting because you're moving, you're doing
Exactly.
something in between.
And so that's the issue, that when it comes to someone like Reagan, things were so bad that when it got kind of a little bit better, they were like, he's the greatest president ever.
Also, there was a lot more American unification at that time. The idea of the American dream was still pretty intact, and it's just not that anymore, and they long for those times.
People struggle to describe what American culture is now because, you know, to immigration, people that immigrate here don't immigrate here because we have freedom of speech. They don't immigrate here because we have gun rights or freedom of press. They immigrate here because of the economy.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Not just
Buffalo
the
Wild
economy.
There
though,
was-
because
there-
they-
I think Wingstop's better.
During the caravan in like 4 years ago, or this is during Trump, I
8 years
think.
ago now.
Well, this particular instance was probably like 2019 or something. LA Times asked one of the people in the migrant caravan why they were coming to the U.S., and he said, "I miss Buffalo Wild Wings." I gotta admit, B-Dubs is awesome, bro. It is one of my favorite places. You get
I think Wingstop's a lot better. You guys have
Wingstop's okay, but I'm a B-Dubs guy. I will. I mean, I love Buffalo Wild Wings. The garlic Parmesan sauce is so good. Although it's probably just seed oils.
You'd cross a country for it.
But Mexico has B-Dubs, man. I made it a point when I went to Mexico City to find a Buffalo Wild Wings, and I did, and it was great.
Did it taste the same?
Yes,
Most of the
Buffalo Wild
interesting.
Wings.
Well,
Mexico.
it's different though. It's like KFC, for example. KFC in the U.S. isn't very good, in my opinion. But,
but in
like in
Japan-
Japan, it's amazing.
Yes,
It's incredible.
Did you have the corn? Did you have the
Everything
corn
is
ice
amazing
cream?
in Japan.
No, I didn't have that.
Yeah, they have corn ice cream in Japan.
Everything is amazing in Japan. Like when All That Remains would go to Japan and tour, you would set up your crew, or the band would set up your stuff, and then the local crew would come out with tape measures, and they would measure everything, where things are. And if you had like 2 waters and a beer, the next day when everything was set up again, they would use the tape measures to make sure everything was the same distance, and then the next day you would have 2 waters and a beer. Like, they are meticulous, because in Japan it seems like they don't have a phrase for close enough. It's either right or it's wrong. Now, I don't know for sure, but like we were talking earlier about, like, you have to have a concept for it. I think they're just like, it's either right or it's wrong.
I'm not sure where I was. It might have been Shibuya, but there was a parking garage, and It is a corridor. There's a big circular space and nothing else. And your car goes on it. You get out, then it spins and goes down. And it then slides your car into a slot. It's like, it's just
that wouldn't
nuts.
happen here in the U.S. Somebody would break it day one.
Somebody,
Well, I mean, they
yeah,
kind of
somebody
have
in their car.
that. They have like the janky version in New York,
Yeah, where it lifts your car up.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
and you're
Now they
always
have-
worried.
You ever see the Carvana things?
Yeah.
Where there's
those
a
are cool.
tower. Yeah, and there's just like cars parked all
Just
up
looks
around.
like the most like poorly designed thing ever, but it's actually kind of cool looking.
Dude, Japan is where it's at. When I went with Luke, and we went to Tokyo, and then made our way up to Fukushima, and we stopped at some hole-in-the-wall karaoke bar that you are sitting shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of Japanese people, all just singing songs, and I sang that song from Aladdin, Whole New World, with this Japanese woman. Dude, it was amazing. Japan, they know what's up. They're also kind of weird, but it's okay.
That's what makes it exciting. It's weird.
Of all the I've been, well, actually Tim has too, but like I've been all over the world, and out of all the places that are not America, Japan's my favorite. It's absolutely amazing. The people are great. Everything is, it's like everywhere seems like it's clean.
And safe.
Yeah, everywhere feels safe. You don't feel like you. I mean, you don't feel like
That's
you're in danger
changing though.
walking around.
Japan's getting fed up with like the tourists.
Yeah.
You're starting to see that. Like,
See all the signs on the
It's because the
businesses?
streamers going over there and getting
me-
buck wild.
causing a problem.
Let me tell you about American culture. It's Little League Baseball. It's selling lemonade as a little kid, learning how to be an entrepreneur. It's warm apple pie with a scoop of ice cream. It is Super Bowl Sunday. There are all these woke people saying that white people have no culture and stuff like that. And then you look at all the different cultures, or all the different countries around the world, and there are distinct cultural elements of what makes those groups. And it's not white, black, or otherwise. It's every different demographic that emerged and developed a way of life, built a culture around what they do. This is the food they eat. It's the clothing they wear. It's the music they have. It's the stories they tell. Like Krampus is not a particularly big element of American culture. If someone asked me what's American culture, I said Christmas, and then they said Krampus, I'd be like, we make jokes about Krampus, but not really. But I think in Germany, Krampus is big. Is that it?
Yeah,
Krampus is the guy who mercilessly beats the children, right?
they're bad. Yeah.
Just beats them on Christmas. Well, we don't do that here.
And we have the Grinch, but I don't think he beats children.
No, the Grinch, he changed his ways.
Oh, that's right. He grew
He doesn't
hard
know.
or something.
Krampus like mercilessly beats them, doesn't he? Is that what it is?
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't grow up with the stories, but
But this is my complaint with the illegal immigration stuff is like you're right. The migrants aren't coming here because they want apple pie, baseball, and Christmas morning. They're coming here because you can work less for more. That's it. If you want to buy an Apple computer, but you're from Brazil, it's going to take you all year to save up to be able to buy, because you're importing from a foreign country and these things cost $1,000. But if you live in the United States, you could work at Starbucks and buy an Apple, a MacBook.
Yeah, you'll see like the most poorest, struggling immigrant on TV, and in their hand they're holding like the brand new iPhone.
There was you mentioned Little League, and I just remember we were skating this ledge over at like one of the baseball fields in the suburbs over here, and it's the Little League pledge that is on all of their dugouts. It says, "I trust in God, I love my country, will respect its laws, I will play fair and strive to win, but win or lose, I will always do my best." It's like, I can't believe they even allow that to still be up there, saying trust in God.
Yeah.
And that's at local fields over here.
where?
I mean, if Kamala won and wokeness kept expanding, how long until "In God We Trust" was removed from all the money? Is it even still on money?
Yeah, well, I mean, they probably won't have to remove it because it would be. They probably wouldn't have to remove it because it would be just a central bank digital currency. So
In God, that's right. Yeah. Well, they're getting rid of cash. In God We Trust. What was it? I was watching one of Portnoy's pizza videos. I think this is what he said. They're cash only. And he said, "Mad respect." And he was like cheering him on for doing it. I really like that.
I don't mind the idea of like using digital currencies. We've been doing it forever with Visa. I think with this administration, with David Sachs being involved in crypto and stuff, and making the administration crypto friendly, it's possible that something like Tether could be used for digital transactions, which it's just it's a cryptocurrency, but it's pegged to the dollar. So one Tether is $1, and it would be used without the same kind of fees that you have to pay for Visa and MasterCard and stuff. Because even if you're not paying you're paying like a
Finance charge
or whatever, or for your using it as a credit card, there's still a fee to use it.
The merchant's getting charged with that.
Yeah, something like $3 or whatever. And there's no reason why you can't use cryptocurrencies in the same way, because there are like something like Tether can be as fast as Visa or whatever. So, and that would actually be a safe way to change value. It would really make make settlements much faster. You wouldn't have to wire money the way that you have to wire money nowadays. It wouldn't have to be authorized through banks and stuff like that. So I think that could be a good thing, but that doesn't mean that's something like Tether would be different to a central bank digital currency.
On that point, do you remember, was it Amazon that had those grocery stores in the airports, and that you would walk in and you'd scan your palm, and like they advertised that you would just like grab what you want, you walk out, and it was like automatic. And then people found out it's really just a bunch of people in a call center watching video cameras, like racking up what you were buying. Like it wasn't actually as high tech as they advertised it to be. And their excuse was, oh, we're training it.
Yeah,
I mean, Indian guys on H-1B visas chilling in the rooms, just taking away what you picked up in your hands. It's crazy, but I went to one of those stores in Hollywood as well, and apparently that's what was going on. So your boy's been on camera to some Indian guys. Yeah.
Wait, was it
still imagine.
airports, or was it just regular?
I don't know. I thought it was all Amazon Fresh, in particular Amazon Fresh stores. But
I mean, I imagine if everything had an RFID code in it, it could be done.
Yeah, 7-Eleven has these things now where you take everything that you're buying and you put it on the counter, and there's like a camera over it, and it scans everything, and it charges you and you walk out. I think that's pretty neat.
A lot of places have like, you can just scan it yourself. You can just buy whatever you're buying without going through to a checkout.
But this was like if you're just walking through and you could pick all this stuff up and pick it up. You apparently were just being watched on camera. I guess they were saying that it was like RFID chips, but it wasn't the case. It was just camera systems. Yeah,
I imagine that's coming though.
Yeah,
I mean, I do think that people, maybe not today, maybe not now, but in the very near future, that kind of monitoring is something that people are going to be very used to. It's easy to just walk by and, like swipe your phone on whatever. And people have become so accustomed to things happening automatically. I mean, if you own a Tesla, I have gotten out of my Jeep and forgot to turn it off more times than I can count since I got a Tesla, because I just get out of the Tesla and the phone comes with me and it locks itself. It does it all. I get out of the Jeep and the Jeep's still running. I'm like, oh, shit, I got to go back and actually turn it off. Turn off the dinosaur machine,
Yeah, it's like that with so many things. Like we just bought a new car, but like my car had where you walk away, it just locks itself. You don't have to actually press a button. My wife's car didn't have that. So I'd constantly leave her car unlocked. I'm like, oh man.
Yep.
Or like the headlights. She had an older car for a long time. We just bought a new one, but like I wasn't used to turning on the headlights when I'm driving at night. Like it just turns on.
Yeah.
I
mean, I like I said, I just got a Tesla in November, and I'm already forgetting that I have to turn my other vehicle off. And I imagine in the future, I still like driving my car. Like I still like driving my Tesla, but there are times when I'll just be like, go home and it'll, and I imagine in the future that that'll become something that I do more regularly, not that there's like, I like the car. I like driving the car. So that's why I drive it. It's not that I there are a lot of times where I let the automatic driving happen, but it is fun to drive.
I like electric cars, nothing against them. I love them and I support it, but I need the sound of an engine. I drive a stick. So like,
an analog guy. Nice.
Yeah. Like
nice.
Teslas, they just feel so soulless. Like it's so empty, and the car manufacturers know they're injecting fake sound. Like I think Hyundai's doing this in some of their electric sports cars. You inject fake sound, and like I think Dodge released an electric Charger or Challenger, and it has a speaker on the outside of the car, so when you're driving, it like makes fake exhaust.
Well, when you put your Tesla in reverse, there's a sound that happens with the Tesla.
I think that's a safety regulation thing.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it may be. That could be.
Because if you don't have any sight and you can't see it, and you just get blindsided by a Tesla, it doesn't matter if it's self-driving or not. It can definitely happen.
I tell you, the difference between the instantaneous acceleration and waiting for an engine to inject the fuel into the engine, spin up and transfer the power to the wheels. I prefer the electric car now. I much prefer the electric car. I feel like you have more options because if you want to go, you can just go. You don't. It's like I don't know if I have time to get in front of this guy or time to go around him. Now with the Tesla, it's just like, oh, I want to do this, and I hit the gas and it goes, and there's no question about it.
I was just thinking something totally random. With the moves to USAID and the gutting of this funding, have y'all considered about which stocks are now going to implode first thing Monday morning? Because I'm wondering. I was just reading something on my phone. I was looking at like earnings reports and stuff like this, and I was like, some of these companies are like research. They do research and development. They're probably getting grants. The government's probably like, oh, we're going to give you X million dollars to work on this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is, I don't want to name any companies in particular, but some of them are like biopharmaceutical companies. And I'm like, who is giving them the money for this research? Investors probably, but how many of them have gotten government grants, which Trump is going to rip to shreds and just be like, stop doing whatever it is you're doing. We're not paying for it anymore. And then all of a sudden they have to lay off a bunch of staff, can't produce a product, and they're gone.
I don't know. What stocks is Nancy Pelosi selling right now?
I mean, there's the
Bro, no joke. Yeah. The people who followed the Pelosi tracker have made bank. Yeah. She sold NVIDIA right before it tanked. I mean, come on.
So NVIDIA, quote unquote, tanking is relative. My NVIDIA stock is still up like 113%.
Oh, 'cause you bought really early on.
Yeah, I bought it a while ago. But yeah, if you're trading the way that there's a Pelosi tracker or whatever, if you buy what Pelosi buys when she buys it, you are gonna
isn't
make
there
money.
A delay on that, right? Because the records aren't available for a period of time, so you're not going to be buying it at the same time as she's buying them.
That could be. I don't know exactly. So
you got a lot of these products now being hit with these tariffs, though. I saw like NVIDIA GPUs were being hit with a tariff. All the pricing went up on those.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, when it comes to things like GPUs and the semiconductors that are being made overseas, our society now runs on those things. And to have them, to not be able to supply, at least supply the United States government with the semiconductors that it needs to operate, that, in my opinion, is dereliction of duty by the federal government. They should be doing everything they can to make sure that there are companies making the semiconductors that they need for the military and for the government, so that way we don't have to rely on anyone else. We do it with oil. We buy a big part of the reason why we buy oil from other people is because we have reserves here, and we have untapped reserves in the U.S. that we don't want to use up just in case of an emergency. Right. If something happens and we have to get oil here, we can do it. We have oil reserves here, and they're untapped, or they're not being really depleted the way that the way that they could be.
Weren't they doing that right before the election though? They were tapping those to get the prices down.
Yeah, I think Biden did that. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
And he bragged about it. He was like, "Oh, look, gas has gone lower," and it's like, "Yeah,
we understand why."
Which is also totally and completely irresponsible.
Because he got rid of all of our emergency reserves when we could have needed them at who knows what could have happened at that time, and he depleted all of it. I remember watching the prices in Hollywood at my local gas station go up to like $7.95 when I was leaving, and then it dropped back down again when he sold all that stuff off, and then sure enough, I forget however many months later, eventually it went back up again.
And the media won't call this out, right?
Yeah, of course not. They'll say you're lying, it never happened. What are you talking about? Even if you may have to.
Some of the media is getting that USAID money.
Or they hit you with
the media is getting that USAID.
I haven't gotten any of that. I hope to get some soon.
Or they hit you with the president doesn't control the price of gas.
Right.
That's the other one.
Yeah, which I mean he doesn't, but
and now like eggs going up in price are Trump's fault for some reason. I don't know.
It's the fact that the media is just a propaganda arm for the Democrats. Now, it's like there was a time where you would make that argument, the left-wing bias, right? For a long time it was considered bias. Oh, they're just biased. They all live in cities, so they're biased. That ship has sailed. It is not bias. It is straight up left-wing propaganda. It is not about, oh, well, you know, the context that these reporters live in is urban, so they're going to have a city-based kind of opinion, or they're going to be, you know, a little pro-government because that's the world that they live in. So if they weren't, you know, it's because of the context. No. These people are on the take from the government. The government buys their product at $10,000 a month or whatever it is. And they are it is absolutely propaganda. So
I just want to let everybody know that before we go to Super Chats, yesterday, for the first time ever, I put butter on a Pop-Tart.
How was it?
It was amazing. So I was watching Family Guy recently, and he was singing a song about how he once put butter on a Pop-Tart. And then Allison and I thought, that's probably actually very good. He's not wrong. And we grabbed some Pop-Tarts from a vending machine, and indeed we buttered them. And it was incredible. Thus, today, I have purchased 1,200 Pop-Tarts.
Which kind?
All different kinds.
All different
All
kinds.
of them. Largely fruit.
Is butter bad on anything?
No, butter is you just
right,
eat.
just-
Well,
yeah.
by itself, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want it, but you could put it on anything.
You know what
Put
I
it on
tried?
pastries?
Butter, you go to a good steakhouse, you butter your steak.
I tried soy sauce on ice cream. the other
What?
day. It's a special type of soy sauce, I swear, and it was amazing. I almost brought it.
Oh, wow.
It was really good.
But just so everyone knows, I do not intend to eat 1,200 Pop-Tarts. I just bought them because we have, 30 plus people here.
I will hoard them.
And Allison was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I was like, Allison, these are going to be gone in a month.
Yeah.
That's like, you got 30 people, and then we've got 30 days. So we're talking about 30 Pop-Tarts a day getting destroyed. And that's just one. And it's 2 per pack. These things are going to be gone.
She didn't see the vision, the Pop-Tart vision.
I know. And then I was like, what you do is you take 2 s'mores Pop-Tarts and you put a cookies and cream in the middle. And you make a Pop-Tart sandwich.
My favorite are
a
the
little bit of butter.
Cinnamon and sugar.
They are very good.
Awesome.
I don't actually intend to eat a lot of them. I just thought it'd be funny because we were running out of snacks, and so I was like, well, we're gonna have to reorder because we usually not only do we have a lot of staff that come through here, but guests, and then guests bring family and friends. So normally we have chips, we have jerky and drinks and all that stuff. So I just said it'd be funny if I just loaded up on crazy amount of Pop-Tarts. And if you haven't put butter on a Pop-Tart, I think you should.
Did you buy butter to put with the Pop-Tarts?
In fact, Brett, I already own butter.
That's it. But you have to have more. You're talking
Oh,
home
you
butter.
mean no? We'll get. I think.
So if people here want to do it, they got to bring their own dang butter.
Yeah, there's no butter here
I was
actually.
gonna say, like, what's the
that's-
logistics of like guest butter? Like, do you have like the little single servings like at a diner, or
Yeah,
like
you
using
gotta
the
get the
liquid
packets.
squeeze butter, or like, you know what I mean?
It's a good question.
The logistics are
No margarine though.
I know.
I did learn an important lesson in that we should never buy large half and half bottles for our guests because so few people you put cream in their coffee. What ends up happening is you open one bottle and then I think like 3 guests out of the week use it and then it's garbage. So I'm like, we should probably get the smallest pot. That's why everybody always does the little tiny ones, but that's fake garbage. It's nasty. I want we get the good organic cream, but then nobody drinks it. Let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, and become a member at timcast.com and support our work because we want to buy more Pop-Tarts. Bro, I'm looking at all of you, that you wish you could have a barrel full of Pop-Tarts just sitting there right in the room, and you could eat them whenever you wanted. But as a nearly 40-year-old man, of course, I can't eat like that. Nope. So indeed, I took a Pop-Tart and buttered it, and that will probably be the last time. But I know that everyone else here will enjoy it. Me, I try to eat better than that. All right, let's grab some Super Chats. I'm kidding about buying endless streams of Pop-Tarts. But I do want to stress, I hope you all know, we buy ridiculous amounts of jerky, Spindrifts, and it's not because we're crazy people. It's because we've got two buildings, 2 different recording studios, 30 plus people and contractors, and we have snacks and food for people. I don't know. It'd be weird if we didn't.
There's like some 0 sugar cola that just appeared over at the other studio, and I have no idea
don't
where.
trust it.
And neither do I. I said I feel like this is some type of like hidden camera show where they're just like drop it there one day. Like who's going to be the one to try it? I'm like, not me.
My brother had an interesting idea. He said, you know how eggs are really expensive and there's a shortage? We should stop giving away Chicken City eggs to employees as a perk for free and get a vending machine where you have to put money in. Of course, that would just break the eggs. But I said, what if we do the one where you have the sliding drawer and you put the money in, press it, and then it unlocks, and you can take the eggs out. Got to capitalize, you
What
know?
about like a claw game? So they have to actually use the claw to pick
It'll
up the
still
egg.
drop it
Yeah,
and break.
and break.
The funny thing, though, is as an employee of the Timcast Media Corporation, you get free eggs. Libby always mentions that every time she comes on the show, she grabs a carton of eggs on the way out. Indeed, we have too many of them. Chickens just make them. We eat them. All right, let's grab your super chats. We got, what is this? Not a bot. People are still experiencing health effects from the Moss Landing battery plant fire. Results from independent soil testing done by the residents there should be returning soon. Interesting. Tim of 2009 says, Tim, shill for Cast Brew Coffee with Ian's Graphene Dream and the Boonies HQ. Don't forget the Discord delinquents and the after show. There's no after show on Friday, although we do have a green room. Probably one of the more chill green rooms. I think the green room we filmed today is legit the most behind the scenes because it's not like we filmed the show. Literally, Andy turned on a camera while I was playing Magic the Gathering with Allison, and Tony was hanging out with Chuck, I think, and it was just kind of generic conversation. Like at one point, we sniffed a bottle of cream to see if it had spoiled, and we believe that it did. We believe it was
We
spoiled.
called it on the sniff test. Yeah.
And I think he was right. I sniffed it and I said, I can't tell. And then he sniffed and said, oh, yeah, it's bad. Then we grabbed a different bottle. It smelled like nothing. And he was like, it's good. And then we put it in our coffee. And it's fun to watch the Green Room show. That's why we make it. So check that one out. Also, yeah, boonieshq.com. Buy our skateboards. Jason Dixon says, Tim, please set up the Discord. The culture is strong. From your website, timcast.com. Discord, culture, Roma Nation. Rise of Middle America. Rise of Middle America. What a great name for a show. You guys, have you checked out Roma Nation? It is very cool that there is the Roma Nation podcast, which started on our Discord server. And so if you haven't become a member at timcast.com, you should, to join the Discord server, because quite literally culture is being built. It is being incubated, and people are coming together and becoming friends, and they're building projects. And now I got people coming to me asking if I had someone ask me the other day if I heard of Roma Nation. Not kidding. They're like, have you heard of that? I heard this is a new podcast. And I was like, I have indeed heard of Roma Nation. Yes, that's right.
You're telling me this now for the first time.
All right, what do we got? Let's see. Sea Cowboy says, I just got fired at USAID. Now the people will never know how many chucks a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Now he said, how many chucks a woodchuck could chuck in Iraq. Thanks, Elon. Indeed.
$500,000 down the drain.
Okay. What do we have here? I'm not your buddy guy. Says, I'm curious if everything claimed to have been spent on by USAID was actually spent on what they said. Did they really pay for pottery classes? Yeah, they probably didn't. There's just some ultra rich guy in Morocco who's got a nice car. Mm-hmm. That's the name of the game, man. That's the capital city. Someone, he who is him says USAID did Gamergate. Is that true?
Oh, money got sent to Feminist Frequency.
What?
I believe.
No.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Mark, guy in Florida, he was pointing this out, and
What?
Gamergate's still like kind of going on, and,
Yeah.
and you've seen this change with the gaming culture. Like, was it Marvel Rivals? I'm playing that like endlessly with a bunch of buddies, but like it's killed Overwatch. Like Overwatch is effectively dead, and Marvel Rivals,
Yeah.
the characters are like good looking. It's nice to play.
Well,
it's
all the
fun.
dudes are jacked and all the women have big butts.
And it's so funny. The left gets like, they're like, oh, you're like, was it like, you're objectifying women, and it's like, well, the guys look at like fit dudes in video games, like, man, I need to go to the gym, right?
Every guy sees
nobody's
a
like,
superhero
oh, I'm being
as aspiration.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Bruce Banner is scrawny and frail in
Right.
Marvel Rivals, but all
That's
the other
the point,
guys,
is that he turns into the
right?
to the
It
Hulk.
is. You know what's really funny about Marvel Rivals? I'm gonna say it. They basically just ripped off Overwatch.
Yeah.
No joke. Like the Hulk is Diva. It's very obvious. It's the same character. And Scarlet Witch is all like, it's not one for one, but Scarlet Witch is basically Moira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, see, they did it better than the Americans, because Americans were, what was it? What was the company behind Concord? Was it Microsoft? Do you remember that company?
yeah, they just
game
flopped
Concord just
instantly.
flopped. They were developing it for years, and they released it. All the characters were super ugly. It literally looked like it was funded by USAID. It was just like, trans and weird, and it just flopped. And it was so bad. I think it made it like a week, 2 weeks. Yeah. And it's gone. I guess the Chinese just do it better.
It was Sony.
Was it?
Yeah, on PS5 and Windows.
$500 million
I think,
or
yeah,
something.
some crazy amount of money, and it totally flopped.
The characters. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, it looks like a USAID project.
Yeah. Look at this.
They look like mutants. Who wants to play this?
What was the game supposed to be?
It was supposed to be like an Overwatch.
Wow.
It was just supposed to be like Overwatch, but like, how do you look at this and identify with any of that?
Oh, wait, what's this? Hold on. Let me pull this one up. This is interesting. Oh, it's too small. Let me see if I can open it here. Oh, come on. It won't let me pull up this image. There we go. We got it. We got it, baby. There we go.
Oh boy.
Dog. Does this game not exist anymore?
No, it's gone.
Really? Completely
No,
gone?
it lasted like a week. They shut down the servers after a couple weeks or something like that.
You can't get into arguments with people about these things because if you tell them you want characters that don't look ugly, they're like, you just want a goon to this character, and they don't understand that actual objective beauty is something that all humans understand.
Just don't want to look at something ugly
Yes,
on the
you
screen.
just don't
for a
want to
couple
look at
hours.
something ugly.
But that's not a real reply.
No.
That's a pre-programmed reply because they don't have an actual good argument. What it's essentially it's an ad hominem, right? The long and short of it is they're just insulting you. They're saying, "Oh, you're a deviant. This is about you being a morally deficient person. This isn't about actually thinking that aesthetically pleasing things are good and things that are not aesthetically pleasing are bad."
I knew that it failed, but I didn't realize that they literally just deleted the game 2
Yeah,
weeks
it's
later.
sort of a disaster. It was probably one of the bigger disasters in gaming right now. But a lot of these American gaming companies are going through it right now.
They look at the characters like they legit were like, let's create a feminist book club from a local college.
It literally looks like a college campus.
It's the
But that's
myth
what
of
they were trying to do. And this is the problem. These people don't play games. Veilguard, did you see what IGN recently said about it? They said it wasn't attractive enough to a profitable amount of players or something like this. Bro, just say it. The average person who plays these games does not want to pull a barf because they misgendered somebody. And as soon as that video dropped, I was out. I loved Inquisition. And I was like, oh, new Dragon Age is coming out. And then I saw that video and I was like, that's it. I'll play Marvel Rivals. You know what I mean? Whatever. All the dudes are just ridiculous. They're like massive and their shoulders look like they can't enter rooms because they'll just bump their shoulders. And all the women's butts are massive. I'm like, they did that on purpose.
It's because in the actual comic books, the men had to look that way and the women looked that way because they're supposed to be the most aspirational form of humanity that you could be. And the problem is that feminism negates the idea that the women looking like that is an affront to them because women see it and they say the women shouldn't look like that. The women should look like me.
No.
The men see the men and they say, I want to look like that. I better hit the gym.
Remember when Marvel tried making Dora the Explorer superhero?
Oh, was that was that the Miss Marvel or something? Which character was that?
It was the New Warriors.
Oh god.
Like, this is nuts. Let me pull this up.
They did this with every
That
character.
ended up not coming out. If I
Right.
remember
It got
correctly.
panned so mercilessly.
Internet gas from
Yep.
Thor
Screen
woman.
time. His name
screen
was.
time.
That was the character's name. And
Her name was Screen Time.
no.
Guy.
Here you go. This is like pretty grainy, but
What
the
is
guy in the
that?
middle is Screen Time, and he can like look at this: the brother and sister incestuous relationship.
And in the brother there, that's what they imagined a jock would look like.
Kind of
in high
isn't
school.
that the trans colors too?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is Safe Space and Snowflake.
Yep.
No joke.
It's not
Legit.
real.
Yes.
No, it was
This is a
absolutely
Marvel thing?
absolutely
Yeah.
real.
I'm pretty sure it was Marvel, right?
Yes, it was Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel's New Warriors. And this character right here is a Latina woman who has a backpack she can reach into to pull out any item from a pocket dimension. Literally Dora the Explorer. Yo, these people are nuts.
With a bag of holding.
But
Bag of
the
holding.
point was that is an example of one that was so bad that it never even made it to print. They canceled it. It might have come out like years later, but the
Some of the
backlash
stuff
was
gets-
so
Look at this
swift
one.
that
Screen time.
What is his power?
He can like interface with the internet and emit internet gas. or
internet
something.
gas.
So he's like a
What is internet gas?
Well, we never got the comics, so we'll never know.
Snowflake. Let me pull this up for you guys.
way too much money.
I think I have cancer now.
Japanese.
Snowflake, Safe Space, B negative, Trailblazer.
See, B negative is a goth.
Nobody
Japanizing
that
B
large
negative.
has that much of a thigh gap.
Yeah, that's your average.
negative.
Talk about unrealistic body
right?
standards.
Seriously.
Wow, dude, I can't believe Concord. Yeah, that's funny. I you know what? I got to tell you, when Marvel Rivals was announced, I've been paying attention for a while. When it came out, I downloaded it. I've been playing it. Concord did so bad, I barely even noticed its existence.
Yeah, I only heard about it. I think Niche Gamer was talking about
I really want to play it now.
Yeah, the physical copies were going on eBay for like a super amount of money.
But how can you play? There's no
They
service.
just wanted it just to be able to
right.
Because Sony was so invested in this, they made like a custom controller for it. Wow. Like, you could buy a Concord like colored controller, and now they're like super expensive. I want one. It actually looks really good.
Dude, Veilguard flopped, and it is nuts. Dragon Age is a major AAA. Everybody was anticipating it. And then this video comes out where this woman is like, oh, gee, I accidentally misgendered this deity. Better pull above. Starts doing push-ups, and the character's like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I've got to do push-ups now because I misgendered somebody. And we're like, off.
Civilization, the newest Civilization, is going through that now too.
No.
So in Civilization, traditionally you pick like a former leader or conqueror.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Well, the newest one, one of the options is Harriet Tubman. And they can be in charge of anything. Like, you can have Harriet Tubman in charge of like the Roman Empire or something to that effect. And so like it's flopping. Like, if you pull it up on Steam, it's just like crashing.
Because like originally, I'm pretty sure I played Civ 6. Like, if you picked Augustus Caesar, you were Rome.
Yeah.
If you picked Abraham Lincoln, you were America.
No, you can.
Now they're making it so that Harriet Tubman can be
Roman Empire.
China.
Yeah.
That's so dumb.
Nothing
Welcome to the
matters,
current
and
year.
everything is stupid, and nothing matters.
Everything is stupid. Man, what was it, Civ 4 that had Leonard Nimoy giving all those quotes? Civilization was the best games. I actually think that, I think Civ 4 is probably good. You don't need to get 5 or 6. Civilization 2 is also good, but you need updates. So maybe if people have modded it to be more modern. But I actually think Civilization as a game, maybe not 7, should be a requirement for children.
It's a great game.
Yeah. I love it when you're like, you know, playing, let's say like Civ 6 or whatever, because I haven't played 7. A good lesson kids learn is you are building your nation, you build little cities, and then all of a sudden some dude shows up and he's angry at you and he's like, my nation is better than yours and I'm going to steal all your stuff and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're like, bro, I didn't even say anything to you. Next thing you know, he's launching catapults, trebuchets, or firing on your city. And it's an important lesson for kids to learn about geopolitics, that sometimes a war will happen and there's nothing you've done, but you better be prepared to defend yourself and the people you care about. Not to mention, teaches you about the pyramids and forms of government. Very educational.
Yeah, Civ 5 Gandhi. If you know, you know. That guy was that guy was wild.
I thought that was Civ 1.
I remember like Civ 4 or 5 or whatever. I don't remember which
No,
one it was.
I'm pretty sure it was like Civilization 1. There was
Do you remember the glitch where he just went crazy and would just nuke you? Yeah, that was nuts.
There was a glitch in the early civilizations where Gandhi was like, I will nuke you. And it was like, whoa, Gandhi, chill. But I believe in real life, his wife very much was in favor of deterrence. Whereas he was like the peaceful guy. She was like, yeah, but come on, you know, if you got a big gun, no one's going to mess with you.
Now you can play the new Civ and be Harriet Tubman and nuke other countries.
Harriet Tubman was not even a world leader.
How dare you? How dare you?
That's what she did was based. That's fine. But wow, that's cringe. I will say I do understand the idea of customizing your civilization and being like, I want to have like, you choose a world leader because they get +1 to this thing and -1 to that thing. But then you also want to have Rome, which gets plus aqueduct and minus this, I guess. But it's really just becoming like a choose your own adventure, customize a character.
Like, where's the balance? Like, you would pick something because it's really good in one thing, and then you have to suffer in some other stats. And now you can just mix everything. What's the point?
Civ 7 is failing, huh?
Yeah, it's too bad.
I just think, wow, Civ 7 opens to mostly negative reviews as players call it an unfinished mess.
Most games that come out nowadays are unfinished.
Yeah, they patch them, or you pay for updates, right? Like back in the day, you buy a game and that's it, because they couldn't patch it.
You got a physical copy.
Yeah, you had a physical. They
Halo
push an
3
update.
was released with Halo, the whole game, right? There was the full multiplayer experience, and they had this thing called Forge where you could build maps all in the game day one. Nowadays, they released Halo Infinity, and like they were patching it and adding on for over a year before the full list of things that they promised before it was released were actually available.
Gentlemen, this message goes out to all the Gen Zers out there because I feel bad that you will never know the glory that was the dawn of video games. In Street Fighter 2, the game was complete. It was released, but there was a problem in the game. People eventually realized that if you put in the sequence to perform a move. During a move, it would chain 2 moves together, and they would be unstoppable. And so in the first release of Street Fighter II, one of the most famous and easiest to pull off combos would be, it's probably got a more formal name, but say Ryu. You jump towards the person, you do a fierce kick. Before you land, you down, forward punch to chain a Hadouken, followed by a Shoryuken. And all in one motion with no opportunity for your opponent to defend, you will hit them several times in what was called a combo. Guess what? That was an error. It wasn't supposed to be possible. And so when it came out, the developers were like, we got a problem. The game got released and people are connecting moves and you can't stop it. And then they went, it's on purpose. It's not a bug, it's a feature. You have to be skillful enough to pull off a combo in the first place. And thus was born the combo, which they then incorporated intentionally into all the games after that. If Street Fighter II got released today, they would have patched that the moment it went out and combos would never exist. Yeah. And so as I aged, I played vanilla World of Warcraft back when it first came out. And there was a point in Stormwind where if when you go in and you go to the left of the auction house, you could jump up on like a crate, jump at the wall, and then jump slightly to the left, floating on a glitch midair, and then fall through the floor and go underneath Stormwind, clearly seeing a place you're not supposed to be. And it was fun. And me and my friends, when we played this, it was the most fun thing because this is a massive world map. And you could go anywhere and try and break into places you weren't supposed to go. The same is also true for the original Destiny. Do you ever play Destiny?
No.
You got these motorcycle type things called sparrows. Yep. And if you positioned yourself at a wall in just the right way and spawned your sparrow, you'd clip into the wall and go through it. That made these games so incredibly fun, and they patched all of that out, and now the games are stupid and boring.
Yeah.
So I saw this meme the other day, and it said video games in 1989, 1992, 1996, and then it says video games and it says millennials, and it said Gen Z gaming, and it's just like GTA 5, GTA 5. Yeah, it was Fortnite every time.
And it doesn't change.
Yep.
Because kids have been playing, these Gen Zers have been playing Fortnite for like what? Almost a
10
decade
years
now. And it's the same. It doesn't look any different.
Yep.
There's no innovation.
Or look at GTA 5. It's like we used to get a GTA and updates and different versions in different cities, and now it's just, that's it, it's over. So, man, these kids, they don't know what they've missed. They'll never know the joy of seeing the latest generation of gaming console coming out with updated graphics, because now it's just like, what do you mean? We downgrade our graphics.
Well, the graphics, if they have made developers lazy. These games come out and they're not optimized. And so you have to drop you have to have the newest, latest GPU, and the game still runs like crap.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the reasoning for it is because, like, in the past they've had the actual resolution degrade as for like further away objects as opposed to the objects that are in the front. Nowadays they're making the resolution for objects far away the same resolution as objects up front. So that's part of why graphics cards they've increased in power, but graphics haven't to the casual player, the graphics haven't gotten better. It's because the graphics have become more homogeneous throughout the whole game, as opposed to just the area that you're in, the immediate area, and like the further out. Like if you think back to like Halo 2, right? Like Halo 2 had the graphics were, a certain level when they were like right next to you and stuff. But then if you looked off in the distance, like it was mostly smoke or just shapes and stuff. So, they are actually using the power of the new graphics cards, but that's because they're trying to make the whole thing more homogeneous.
Let's grab some more Super Chats. We got Samuel Eddy who says, I am passing this message on. If America is going to have a new golden age, we should polish the Statue of Liberty. Put it to a poll. It's an interesting point. The Statue of Liberty is supposed to be bronze. It is made of copper, I believe, and so it has oxidized and turned greenish. How often would it, it's kind of weird that we never kept up with it.
That's what they did in the show Fringe, in the alternate timeline. The Statue of Liberty is copper.
I just blame the state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
They've never. Shouldn't they have been like every year we should polish it?
You'd think.
Once a year.
I mean, look, they're literally constantly painting the Golden Gate Bridge. When they get done, they start at the other end again. Because
Really?
Yeah. If it's not constantly, it's like there's not a long time in between. They have to keep updating the paint on the Golden Gate. So
it's actually nuts to me right now that they don't make new games anymore. Really, it's just like they take existing engines and just update them slightly.
There's no innovation.
Yeah, we used to make new games. I go into the PlayStation store and I'm just like, what is this, dude?
There's still some lasting ones. I like Kojima stuff. So like
Yeah.
Death Stranding has been really, really great.
I remember going to the video game store back in the day. Where would we go? Funko-Land?
GameStop, Funko-Land,
GameStop, bro.
KB Toys. Was that another? Did they sell games?
No.
That was actually one of the last bastions of like small businesses that would have like the resellers and stuff like that.
Funko-Land.
Those still exist.
Funko-Land.
Yeah, Funko-Land. And I remember when I was a real little kid, we would go to Farmore. I don't know if that was a Chicago thing. And, the video game selection was massive. It was just like, there was just too many games. And then you'd have like this huge thing of all these games. Now there's like 3.
So we went to Chinatown in Chicago and they sold ripped games. And you would take your PlayStation, you'd have to put like a little spring in it and get it modified, and you can play like copied games. And you'd go to Chinatown and just buy copied games.
To be fair, there's like more games than ever now. But there's just like, GTA doesn't make new games anymore. Rockstar just doesn't make them.
Well, they make one game and then they ride it with updates
Right.
and patches and DLC for 10 years.
Man. Well, at least Marvel Rivals is a new game. Whatever. What's their model? Like they're selling costumes?
Yeah, cosmetics.
Yeah, that seems to be the model. Free game and you can buy cosmetics. It's kind of a bummer that Overwatch, is over. But, it is what it is. They tried launching the classic mode.
Right.
Bringing back the OG, and everyone's like, this sucks. Yeah, c'est la vie. All right, we'll grab one more here. This account, it's not the account you're looking for, says, Tim is a genius. It's only $320 for 1,064 Pop-Tarts. It's not expensive. We have purchased very many. And different flavors, largely the fruit kind, but we'll get more. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. That really is the best way to help. The show spreads through word of mouth. If everybody who watched this show just posted the link and said, hey, come hang out with me and watch. Like, look at it this way. You become a member at timcast.com. You tell your friends to become a member and watch the show. And you can watch together and chat with each other and hang out. And you're also going to meet a lot of new people. But tell your friends to watch live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Because if you're watching and they're watching and you're like, online and you're talking to each other, you can build community and let's roll, everybody. Really, the way that shows do grow is you talk to anybody in this industry and they're like, I wish there was a magic bullet. The answer is just if people like the show, they tell their friends to watch it. So if you do, that would be appreciated. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Tony, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, would appreciate the follow. If you're in Texas, you should definitely follow us. We cover just Texas news. So for the Texans that are watching, currentrevolt.com or Current Revolt on Twitter, X.
Perfect. Guys, if you want to follow me, I am on Instagram and Twix at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. You should check out Pop Culture Crisis. Me and Mary are live 5 days a week at 3 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. It's a lot of fun. Come hang out.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record just dropped. It is called Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Don't forget, The Left Lane is for Crime.
We will see you all with clips throughout the weekend, and then we're back on Monday. Thanks for hanging out.